at the end of time.
O'clock.
Well, hey everybody, what's going on? It's Wednesday night, and here we are again with yet another depressing as fuck show. What a way to start out.
Yeah.
Holy crap, you guys. I really did not know much about this topic at all. Like, I had kind of heard of it just, you know, around the fringes or whatever, but I didn't really know what it was or anything. One of you guys recommended it. I can't remember who it was. But when I started looking into this, holy crap, yeah, I can't really believe that this went on for as long as it went on, that this was allowed to happen for as long as it was allowed to happen. Yeah, it's pretty messed up.
Yeah, enslaving the women.
Pretty messed up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make them do laundry.
Among other things.
Yeah.
So,
we're talking about...
Yeah, we were talking
about... Yeah, this went on into the mid-90s.
Yeah, so it's not ancient history,
no.
You guys. This was, like, still going on after I graduated from high school.
Up in Ireland and shit.
Yeah.
Places in Europe. They even had this in the U.S. for a little while.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
And it was, like, mentioned it before in other parts of the show, like, back in the day, really nobody was free, you know. Fucking a lot of people were indentured servants. Fucking a lot of girls working in brothels in the Old West, of course. Fucking they couldn't leave. They weren't free. They had, you know, they were indentured servants. They had to pay off some kind of debt before they could get out.
Yeah, see, that's what I mean. That's what I think.
Pay off their contract debt.
People don't understand is that, which I'll get into a little bit, like, as to why these types of institutions were formed, you know, just in response to, there's so much prostitution. I'm like, you understand that there's so much prostitution because everyone's poor, right? And they don't really have any other recourse. There's no social safety net. There's no they don't have any options. That's really all they can do to like feed themselves.
And of course the market gets flooded, so the prices go down and down and down.
Right.
Girls,
that's
not
just
worth
basic
anything.
economics.
Yeah. And then
and they're wondering why this is happening. Like, there's suddenly like a downturn in morality. I'm like, no, everyone's just fucking broke, and that's all they can do, and they have to eat.
They gotta eat.
Duh.
And booty's only worth $5 now, so a lot of booty's got to be turned over.
It's mind-boggling that people were so stupid that they didn't fucking figure that out.
There are mind-boggling programs that actually said what went down in Weimar era Germany. They said that it got so bad you could have sex with entire families for under $20. The children, the old people, everything. That's how bad. And so it can get real bad. But that's really not what this is about. You know, this is about people getting sold into slavery, basically, or tricked into it, basically.
Or they didn't. Well, yeah,
the church was involved.
Most of them did not really have any choice in the matter.
Church was involved in everything. Now, in the United States, probably the most powerful, one of the worst ones, would be the railroad companies. They were more powerful than any government in the day. They would just machine gun Chinese and Irish workers just on the side of the railroad tracks. They had their own courts.
And no one did fuck all about it.
Yeah, they had their own courts. They could sentence employees to death.
That's a whole other show.
They can sentence employees to death for breaking company policy. There's all kinds of shit that went down. And it wasn't governments, it was just fucking robber barons, oligarchs, powerful companies that had the power of life and death over people. In this case, Catholic Church.
Yeah, this is example number 40 bajillion of why the Catholic Church should not be allowed to run anything ever. For fucking Jesus Christ. And like I said, the more I read about this, and like the more I read, like after you know, CB has pointed out that you might think that this is like an old-timey thing, which it was for a lot of countries, but in Ireland, which is why I specifically wanted to focus on Ireland, this shit was going on until the mid-1990s, and honestly, it kind of only came to light, you know, and everyone got outraged about it after kind of like a big scandal that happened in 1993, and even then it took like a couple years for the information to filter out. But the thing about it is that not only am I infuriated that this shit was allowed to happen for so long, but I'm also infuriated that the Catholic Church, probably unsurprisingly, has absolutely refused to apologize for it. They did nothing wrong. Everyone's picking on them. Yeah. It's just, and the more I read like quotes from them, I just wanted to like punch the entire Catholic Church in the dick, if that was possible.
Well, there's a lot of good Catholics, you know. It's not the Catholics themselves. It's the damn organization up there in the
That's what I'm talking about.
The Pope regularly says crazy shit. They do a lot of dirty, crooked shit. When you really analyze what the upper church, what it looks more like a real estate fucking business, really. They own a shit ton of real estate. And they also have their own bank. And the purpose of that bank seems to be to launder money for the intelligence agencies. I heard the fucking CIA, that's where the CIA does all their banking. The Vatican Bank. Wouldn't surprise me.
Zach asked, wasn't Sinead O'Connor in one of these things? She was. It wasn't one of the Laundries, I don't think, but it was a similar institution, like in the similar system. Because we're just going to focus mostly on the Laundries, but I am going to bring up, because this was like a whole interlocked system that the Catholic Church had going here for like pretty much 2 centuries, a little bit more. And Sinead O'Connor was actually in one of these when she was 15 for about a year and a half. She came from a super, super abusive family, and she was placed in one of these, and she endured like some pretty bad abuse. Not as bad as some of the girls here, but you know, it's like I said, it's not the oppression Olympics, so you know, any kind of abuse is bad. But yeah, so she was in one of these. So
how'd she get out?
When people find that, she actually they did let her out, yeah. Like later on. But it's funny because when I saw a documentary and they mentioned that, and somebody in the comments said, oh, well, now her ripping up that picture of the Pope on SNL, it like makes a lot more sense. Which everybody got mad about. I wasn't mad at her about that. Like, but knowing that like gives a lot more context to it. She has like she had a beef like with the Catholic Church, and understandably so. And probably most people would have a beef with the Catholic Church after. Well, if you didn't have a beef after all the fucking numerous sex scandals, like in pedophile priests and stuff like that, you know, I don't know what to tell you, but this is yet another thing.
Priests that committed murder, rape and murder.
Yeah, where basically they just exploited people. They just treated people like trash. I mean, as lesser than, like subhuman, because they were fallen.
Whatever that means.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
Yeah.
But yeah, this whole story, like, I watched a bunch of documentaries about it. There's actually like a documentary about it by an Irish guy. I think it was made in 2009, named Stephen O'Riordan. And he was actually the first Irish person to make a documentary about this, and they showed it on TV over there, and it got like a big response. But he interviewed a lot of women that had been in these, because like I said, because they were around until the 90s, there's a lot of the survivors of them are still alive. So he interviewed a lot of them, and it was just really, really heartbreaking. But yeah, it's on YouTube on his channel. It's called The Forgotten Maggies. And there's other stuff on here about it too. Like I said, there's been a couple like fictional movies like based on it. There was one called Philomena that I think had Steve Coogan in it, and there was one directed by Peter Mullen that I think was called The Magdalene Sisters. But it's based on these. But this was, I really like to thank whoever recommended this, because this was actually a part of dark history that it might have been.
I think it might have been CB.
But, you know, but I didn't really know much about this, and this is yet another piece of dark history that I kind of feel like needs to be better known. CB said, didn't a priest rape Sinead O'Connor, and that was why she ripped the Pope's photo? Oh, yeah, maybe so. Maybe so. I don't know if it happened when she was in... Well, because in some of these laundries, there were allegations of sexual abuse, which don't surprise me. That doesn't surprise me at all. You know, physical abuse, emotional abuse, all kind of shit. It's pretty fucking depressing. But yeah. So Phantom says Catholic priests should be allowed to get married. Yeah, I mean, that's
clean the place up a bit.
It would. I don't know.
Perverts, man.
Yeah, because, I mean, you'd have to be kind of weird, like, to want to go into a thing where you were supposed to be celibate.
Yeah.
I mean, why would you want to do that? That's going to attract people that are a certain kind of way, that are, like, not maybe not. Right.
Yeah.
You know what I
That's
mean?
why the Protestant churches don't quite have that same level. They don't have problems of the same magnitude.
Don't get me wrong. I don't trust any priest anywhere, like whatever denomination they are.
Yeah, but letting them get married solves a lot of problems.
It would actually, probably. This whole... Really, I kind of think a lot of the problem... We'll see that it's kind of a problem, particularly in this case, is that this whole conflation of sex with sin, and particularly as pertains to women, because this is all focused toward women. Nobody gave a shit about any of the men that did anything in these situations.
Gotta keep them women protecting that hymen.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So it's like just that attitude, that patriarchal attitude,
that precious hymen,
is really, really damaging, as we'll see. Like, you know, in a lot of ways, but particularly in this case too. I mean, this is super, super fucked up. I was really upset. I was really upset by like watch all this stuff about this. But yeah. Jen Allen says the Vatican City is a country. Yeah. It's kind of interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, with huge walls.
Yeah.
Like walls that are eight stories tall, you know. Yeah.
Because they're super secretive, man.
Yeah.
They don't want any of their little dirty laundry coming out.
Yeah.
They just want to be able to like operate with impunity and like not let anybody know what the fuck they're up to.
Yeah.
Because they're up to shady shit like all the time.
Making money.
Well, that's what they were doing. That's what they were doing here too.
Yeah.
That's what they were doing here.
Running banks, running crooked banks.
Phantom also says Tom's got a trophy case of all the hymens he's collected.
No, I actually didn't actually sleep with too many virgins. Actually, those are actually low on the list. Yeah, my menu had high end women on there. Ones that were usually some kind of an exotic performer. That was the ones I had at the top. I like strippers, gothic strippers. That's the ones they were at the top of the menu. I wasn't into the virginal thing. I liked bad girls.
Yeah, I don't really understand like why a lot of dudes seem. I guess they like the idea. Like Insecurity says, like they like the idea that like no, she's not unsullied by another man or something like that, which seems very backward.
It's not what it is.
But
they don't want a woman to have any track record, so she can't compare you to anybody else.
Well, that too.
I was fucking.
Well, like
happy
I said,
to
it was
be
like
compared.
an insecurity.
Yeah, I was happy to be
issue.
compared. You know this is gonna be good. You know, just I didn't care. I liked bad girls.
Yeah.
As long as they weren't so bad you couldn't trust them.
Yeah.
You know.
You like them like kind of a little bit bad.
Yeah, I like them a little bad.
But still kind of good deep down.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get it.
Few trustworthy.
Right.
You have to be trustworthy. Because the so-called good girls weren't trustworthy.
Well, no.
No, that's just something that's a free-floating trait. You can find a girl with a hellacious past, you can trust her.
Yeah.
If you strike up the right friendship with her.
Well, and sometimes people that have been through some shit.
Yeah, they're a little hardcore. Got hard edge on them.
Yeah, and well, they kind of like maybe understand themselves a little bit better.
Yeah, they know when they're being treated
They
fairly.
have a lot more insight.
Yeah, they know when they're being treated
because
fairly.
they've been through like a lot of shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you know. Murder Hornet also said you had a nipple belt.
Yeah, I got a nipple belt.
Just like Ed Gein.
Yeah.
Yeah, CB said, Jenny, if you watch the Magdalene Sisters from 2003, it will blow your mind and disgust you as a woman. Oh, I'm sure. Like, just hearing the story, like when I watched the Forgotten Maggies, that documentary, and the guy that made the movie, who was like a young guy, and he's interviewing like these women that would talk to him that had been there and stuff like that. And like one of the women, she's like, look, I can't just tell you what happened, but I'm going to read you my statement because it's like that's easier for me because she'd already written it down and it was like more, she felt more detached from it. So she's just like reading it like in this sort of monotone voice, and the shit she was saying, I was just sitting there like horrified. You know what I mean? And she was just saying it like because she had to, because she couldn't just. And the dude was like crying, and I was like, oh my god, it was awful. So yeah, it's pretty messed up. So like I said, it's been kind of a journey watching all this stuff like the last few days. But you know, I'm always kind of down to learn about some fucked up shit I didn't know about before, even though it does bum me out. All right, so let's get into this. Like I said, okay, so Magdalene Laundries, that's what they were specifically called in Ireland because they were actual literal commercial laundries. However, Magdalene institutions, Magdalene houses, Magdalene asylums, Magdalene hospitals, that is not specific to Ireland. In the 18th century in particular, there seemed to be kind of a movement, if you want to call it that, toward saving the souls of poor, wayward sex workers. And they would open these institutions to take in these poor, degraded sex workers and try to get their morality back up to snuff so they could be released back into the wild, yeah. I suppose. And like I said, it's funny because the reason that these came about was because of the, rampant prostitution. And I said the reason there was rampant prostitution because there was rampant poverty. Those two things usually go together, obviously. And especially women who, their husbands died or they were orphaned or they'd been abused in some way or something like that, and they were just cast aside. They didn't really have any options. They couldn't go get a job or nothing like that. It's like you had to do that or you didn't have any other choice, right? Or you'd starve to death. So there's all these prostitutes, there's all these sex workers running around, and all of these do-gooders started realizing that. So they start opening these institutions, starting in the mid 1700s, right around there. And at first, obviously they're called Magdalene houses because of Mary Magdalene from the Bible, who I don't think...
Yeah, that's a myth.
I don't think it ever calls her explicitly a sex worker in the Bible. No. I think it does call her a fallen woman, and people just read that into it.
No, I don't think it ever says that. It just says that she was kind of troubled. Going back to what Dr. Price said about her, said he couldn't find anything in the canon that's extra canonical.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. I was pretty sure that was because everybody. I kind of feel like people have this misconception that Mary Magdalene was a prostitute, and I'm pretty sure it doesn't.
Never
say
says that. No, Dr. Price and a couple of the other guys who have read that over and over again in the original Greek and are trying to take that within the spirit of the times. What they're talking about is a wealthy widow who has a bunch of money, but mental problems. Maybe her husband died, and she becomes a supporter of Jesus' church.
Right.
She's probably funding it. That was how they interpreted probably what it is that they're talking about. The thing is, though, is that this is all legend.
Yeah. It's not real. She
wasn't
a real
historical.
person.
Yeah. I'm convinced there was no Jesus.
But yeah, we've talked about that a lot. I don't think there was either.
No. It's made up of other Roman gods like Dionysus and Socrates, and it's a retelling of Moses. They have a similar birth story. It's Moses for the Christians. That's all it is. And he's a Messiah.
It's a reboot.
Yeah, it's a reboot.
Just like Marvel.
Yeah, and he originally didn't live on the earth. If you look at the Pauline material, what's there never talks about an earthly Jesus, a dude walking around, a preacher. No, it's always a celestial Jesus at the right hand of God. They're talking about an archangel above Gabriel. They made him a man later. That's why they keep saying he was born of a woman. Our Jesus, he was born. Well, shit, man, everybody's fucking born.
Yeah, everybody's born of a woman.
Because other people...
Kind of goes with the territory.
You're saying that other people's Jesuses, he was never born. That was a celestial Jesus.
We got one that's an actual human.
Yeah, our Jesus and our supper, he was actually here. That's what
they're trying to one up everybody.
It's all written Christian versus Christian. Their shit is wrong, our shit is right. It's like Star Wars fans. That ain't Star Wars. It's
exactly the same. It's like I know some people get offended when I say it, but it's exactly the same. Yeah. It's storytelling, just like always. Yeah. And there's little factions, and they're just like, my story's better than your story, and I'm going to improve on yours, and all this. It's the same exact thing. That's just what humans do.
The story that ended up winning out over time was that Jesus was born. He really existed. He was a preacher. He did miracles. Evidently that's not what the original story was. We don't have the original story. It's long gone. What's left of the old original stories is in the Pauline epistles just mentioned. Sideways glances at it.
Yeah,
it says he was crucified in the sky by celestial demons, powers, and principalities. Basically, is what it says. Talking about demons, sky demons. That's what killed Jesus in the original story.
CB says, it's sick that back then, if a woman got raped, it was her own fault, and she was not a victim. And I'm saying that as a man. That is how fucked up their view was towards women. Oh, yeah, we'll get into that.
Yeah, that's like Islam.
We'll get into that.
Yeah, in Islam,
because that happened in this case as well, on numerous occasions.
It's the same in Islamic cultures,
Well,
if a woman gets raped, it's her fault.
Didn't you know everything's our fault?
Yeah. Well, their thing
always and forever.
Well, their thing. Well, only a whore would choose to live through that. You should have fucking killed yourself or died fighting, protecting that hymen. And this is some dude saying this.
Of course it is.
He's
Again,
probably never gotten his ass beat.
Reason number 40 bajillion why men shouldn't run shit.
I always
particularly religious men.
I've always noticed that
ever.
Intellectual lawmakers and people that pass judgment on other people are always the ones that with the skinniest little arms and the ones that fucking need other people with guns and badges to protect them. But yet they'll tell a woman, you should have gone down fighting to protect your hymen.
Well, we should. Like I said,
and if I got a hold of that dude, he would fucking beg. He'd be begging me not to do something to him. I'd do it anyway, though.
I'm telling you,
he didn't have the strength to stop me. So they can't relate to that because they have authority for some reason.
Women can literally never win. Whatever we do, it's wrong. That's just something I've learned over the time. Oracle says, in medieval times, if a married woman was raped, she could be charged with adultery. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Tammy said, well, she shouldn't have been a woman.
Shouldn't have been a woman.
Shouldn't have been born a woman. That's your fault. I mean, pretty much.
I was reading a book that mentioned a medieval case. Dude got fucking busted for having sex with the fucking horse, the female horse. And they hung them both.
Yeah, they did that a lot back then in the Middle Ages. They hung the horse too. Yeah, they would
sinning.
They would kill the animal too.
That's ridiculous.
They were kind of stupid back then.
They were like, well, the horse also sinned.
Horse was like, what the fuck did I do? This dude just jumped on me.
Jump on back there. I didn't know what he was doing.
I don't want that.
Thing. I can't feel that.
Yeah, he probably could.
No, fucking no. A mare can't feel that.
No.
She's used to something fucking 26
like, is that
inches
a fly
long.
back there? What's
yeah, what the fuck is that?
Tail and shit?
You got
literally like a hot dog in a hallway.
Y'all know I worked in the horse industry. I know the ins and outs, the actual details of that shit. Fucking man's not even gonna put a dent in that fucking mare.
Like I said,
when you see how it actually happens, fuck yeah.
But although it'd be nice if they got fucking kicked once in a while. Yeah, Tammy said that horse looking all sexy.
Yeah,
right. Some men can't resist it, man. Yeah. Because that's the thing, men just can't resist it.
It looks like on the back of a woman.
They can't resist it.
Yeah.
They just have to.
Like, rubbing on it. That looks like a bag of woman.
They just have to.
Yeah.
They don't have any
Give
human...
me that bucket of apples. Give that to her.
They don't have any self-control.
Go bring me the ladder. Yeah.
Women are the ones that are supposed to keep them in line, evidently.
Yeah.
Because they don't have any... They're just like animals, you know what I mean? I guess. That's also stupid.
All that shit is myth, though, because...
Well, yeah, that's also stupid.
Because I've also read accounts that came from the church during the Middle Ages, and the church was complaining that basically everyone was totally immoral. Everyone. Said all...
Although I wouldn't really trust their fucking word on anything.
Well, evidently they had sex in public. They fucking had sex with each other, fucking whether they were married or not. They would just claim to be married. Because remember, it wasn't until later they actually made them get married in churches where there were witnesses and shit.
Yeah, that's
you would just say you were married, yeah. And evidently they would just have sex out in public. And they would take their clothes off in public and bathe in front of each other. There was no problem with nudity. That was something that...
Well, everybody lived in such close quarters. It's like everybody saw everybody shit and like give birth. And so nobody really had any body issues, I guess.
And they were not they were not bashful about sex at all. Because since they were little kids, the whole family would take all their clothes off because they were fucking filthy and wet. Throw them at the foot of the bed, and they'd all go onto a fucking bed, which was just a piece of wood with a blanket over top of it, and they'd all sleep in there naked. And the half of them having sex. Yeah.
With the other half?
Yeah. No. Half of them having sex. With the little kids in there and everything. And lice, fleas and shit.
Yeah, I was going to say.
They lived like barn animals. Worse, probably.
Yeah, worse than barn animals. Well, for sure worse than barn animals nowadays.
Yeah. And that was just the peasants.
CB said, Tom, they stuck leeches up their ass in the Middle Ages, so no worries. Everyone was fucked up.
Yeah.
They didn't know what the fuck they were doing.
Let some blood out. You'll be all right.
Yeah.
They did that. That later. Later on, they did it in the 1800s sometimes. Yeah. They were crazy.
Got to let all those humors out. I thought that was kind of more of an ancient thing, I guess. But they still believe that stupid crap like later on. So the first Magdalene institutions, like I said, they weren't exclusive to Ireland. They had them in England. They had them in Australia. There were a bunch of them in Australia. They had some in the United States too. I think there was the first one in the United States. I think was in Philadelphia, and I think there was one in Boston. There was one in New York City, and I think there was one in Chicago too. But the thing about those is that I kind of feel like, I'm sure the original ones were probably not great, but it seems like they were started with kind of their heart in the right place, sort of. I mean, for the era. It still seems fucked up by our standards. But the reason that they talk about the ones in Ireland still was not only because they went on the longest. Like I said, the last one in Ireland didn't close until 1996. But because they were known for being the most abusive and, you know, for essentially utilizing like slave labor for commercial profit.
Yeah.
Now I've heard that some of the ones in Australia did that too, but I'm not entirely sure about that.
Yeah, I've heard Australia did fucking weird abuses every now and then too. Like you go, man, that's Australia did that? Because, you know, Australia's pretty, the society's pretty close to the United States. United States and Australia are probably more similar than, say, United States and Canada, I would think. Just the mentality of the people. But sometimes you'll hear about something that happened in Australia, you're like, God damn. They let that fly down there, but not in recent history, though.
Yeah, I mean,
there's
like
shit in the 70s.
There's a lot of real fucked up shit in Australia, particularly in regards to the Aboriginal people. Wow, there was some really messed up stuff that happened back then. Really messed up. But like you said, it's kind of similar to the United States, like how we went through like slavery and all that other kind of. It's kind of like a similar situation. And like what they did to the Native Americans here. And stuff.
One of the things that stands out, I remember, that was weird about Australia is like their laws about homosexuals. They're real brutal on fucking gay dudes, from what I remember. Beating them up. The cops would beat them up.
That happened in the UK too.
Yeah.
Not so much anymore.
Yeah,
that I know
back in the 70s, evidently.
But back in the 70s, back in the 60s and 70s, that was a big thing. I wrote about like a bunch of cases. There were some in Australia and there were some in the UK too, where
cops
like,
hunt them down,
like groups of cops would like go to like known gay cruising spots, like in parks and stuff, and would just like beat the shit out of them and kill them. And some, there was one guy in the UK, I can't remember what year it was, but his name was George Duncan. He was like a doctor. And they got him out there and they beat the shit out of him and threw him off a bridge. Yeah. Now they didn't solve it, but they're pretty sure that it was like this bunch of cops that did it because they were kind of known for doing that kind of shit.
Gay dudes making out in a car at night. Who gives a fuck? The cops come up and just look what we have here, and they beat the motherfuckers half to death.
It's a bully mentality. Yeah. And a lot of cops have that, and it's just like, oh, here's somebody we can abuse. You know what I mean? It's that kind of shit.
What if it was two chicks in there fucking going down on each other?
Well, then they're like, can we watch?
Yeah, give me that.
And then they'll just be there jerking off.
Let me go get you a drink. Yeah.
Because they're the worst. Yeah. Kenny says, when it comes to religion, women always get a bad deal. Yeah, well, that's why I never had any patience for it. Like, from when I was a young age. I'm like, yeah, no, that's not for me. CB said, Jenny, a lot of the nuns would sexually abuse the women, too, and it would shock how many did it to the women. Yeah. That's what, and it's weird because some of the stories that I heard, like, of the survivors of these, they said stuff about the nuns, like, physically, of, like, beating them and stuff like that, but some of the beatings, like, did have a sexual component, and several of them did report that they'd been sexually abused by the priests, because there were priests there, too, but I'm sure the nuns did it as well, because, like, why wouldn't they? They might as well. They were already doing, like, bad shit. So, yeah. Zach says, especially sucks because of how hot Aussie dudes are. Most Australians are lovely, lovely people from what I've heard. But, yeah, there are shitty people everywhere. So like I said, there were a lot of these, like, all over the world. And generally, what their initial function was because, like I said, this is back in the 18th century. It was, like, mid-1700s. And there was no social safety net. There was no social security. There was no welfare. There was nothing like that. So if you were poor, if you were a woman that was unmarried, if if your husband died, or if you were abused by your family or turned out by your family, you didn't really have any options other than to turn to sex work, like to feed yourself. There wasn't anything else you could do. And so because of the prevalence of it, these institutions sprung up to ostensibly try to help these women. Like, they would go in there and they would supposedly give you moral instruction, and maybe some of them would try to like teach you a trade like needlepoint or some shit like that, like, you know, like women were supposed to do back then. And then they would keep you in there for a little while, and then they would let you back out into society with the hopes that you would find something to do other than sex work. You know what I mean? So the first Magdalene institution was called the Magdalene Hospital for the Reception of Penitent Prostitutes. That was the name of it. And it was actually founded in 1758 in good old Whitechapel. That's right, Jack the Ripper's stomping ground, more than a century later. But yeah, that's what. So even in 1758, there was a bad sex worker problem in Whitechapel. So the guy that started it was like a silk merchant. He was like, you know, a wealthy philanthropist or whatever, and this was like his pet cause. So he was the one that started it. Now, this particular institution, like I said, I'm sure the conditions there were horrible. Conditions back then were horrible for everybody, especially when they were poor. So I'm sure it wasn't great. But they did, they would have the women make things, like make little crafts and shit like that. Like I said, like needlepoint, that kind of stuff. But they were paid for their work. Like, not a lot, but, you know, it was kind of sweatshop sort of wages. And I love this little factoid. This early Magdalene hospital also earned extra income by being a tourist attraction for the upper classes.
Come down there and gawk at the whores, huh? Look at these whores out here doing laundry. Bring your little girls up front. This is
oh
what
my
happens
god!
to you if you give it up.
Oh my
too
god!
early.
Here we are, Lord and Lady Twee motherfucker. They're gonna go like stare at the pores.
Yeah.
Before afternoon tea. Isn't that precious? So yeah, so that's how they made some money. Somebody would come and look at these poor degenerate women.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Working at their needlepoint. We are giving them moral instruction. We are helping these children.
Yeah. And then like some of the dudes are looking at him going, oh yeah, see, she probably had a good business going. She is literally sitting on a gold
Well, and the thing about it is some of those
upper
upper class dudes have probably fucked some of those women.
Yeah.
I'm sure they did.
Yeah, I remember her, man. She
like,
was a throat goat.
Mm,
Yeah. All kinds of shit, man.
I'm sure that actually
Oh,
happened.
yeah.
Can you imagine? I just can't imagine.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I mean, I can't imagine, but I'm just saying it's like, wow, that is like so
I
shitty.
can imagine that kind of classism and that mentality actually is what fueled the American Revolution. French Revolution, too.
Yeah. I mean, you can see why it's like, yeah, just cut their fucking heads off. You know what I mean?
Yeah, fuck them.
I get it.
One of the worst things you could ever be in America traditionally was to be a fucking snob. Oh, people hate it.
Yeah.
Unless it's something physical, like if some chick with a fucking booty, big, you know, like she's an Instagram, she can be snotty about her body. Because you can see that. But just snottiness just in general about fucking high-minded shit, fucking class-oriented crap, who your dad was or fucking what school you went to, you're not going to be real popular here. That's why those people all keep themselves cloistered away amongst their own kind.
Yeah, because no one wants to.
Nobody else wants to fucking hear their shit.
Yeah, nobody wants to hear you talking, Nigel. You know what I mean? It's
yeah.
But yeah, I just.
They think, well, they're jealous of us. No, we're not jealous of you. You're a fucking asshole.
You just suck.
Nothing cool about you.
You just suck, and you have no idea how the real world works.
Yeah,
because you never had to.
You're in a bubble.
So I loved that, stumbling across that little factoid, because I could imagine these prissy little with their little handkerchiefs, picking their skirts up. Ooh. Look at all the, you know what I mean? It's just like, oh, that. So it's just like, that's adorable. That's adorable in a really infuriating way. So that was the first one that opened, but that one was in England. Now the first one that opened in Ireland was sometimes known as the Dublin Magdalene Asylum or the Magdalene Asylum for penitent females. Love that. That was the first one in Ireland. Now, interestingly, even though the Magdalene Laundries in Ireland specifically became associated with the Catholic Church, pretty soon after this first one was Protestant only. This was run by Church of Ireland, and only Protestants could go there. And again, this was like a wealthy philanthropist lady that founded this one. It was in 1765, and her name was Lady Arabella Denny. Now, this one was actually open until 1994. The name had changed to Denny House by then. But this one was kind of more, not so much a laundry, but it was more what's called a mother and baby home, which we'll get into what that is like later on. But Lady Denny, like I said, I'm sure she was just as out of touch as everyone in her class at that time and this. But she did seem to kind of have her heart in the right place, it seemed. She had supported like a foundling hospital, like for orphan babies and stuff like that. Children that were abandoned because they were born out of wedlock or whatever. So she kind of got a bee in her bonnet about it. And kind of got bummed out that like all these young women that had gotten pregnant as teenagers or unmarried and had to give up their babies. And so she decided she was going to, spend her money and open this institution for fallen women, or like I said, originally the term meant sex workers, essentially, is what it was, or women who had children out of wedlock, which pretty much amounted to the same thing back at that time. Yeah, because they're like, yeah, you're whoring ass, like you're not married.
Should have kept them damn legs closed.
Mm-hmm. Never blame the dude though, do they?
Hell no. He's the one throwing all the accusations a lot of times, or his dad is.
Yeah, it's fucked up.
Yeah.
So in this first,
I'm glad all that shit's gone.
Yeah, me too. I hate that crap.
Yeah.
But this first Irish institution, like I said, I'm sure the conditions weren't fantastic, but at least at this one, they did give, okay accommodation for the time. They fed the women like pretty well. They gave them religious instruction, which, kind of useless, but whatever. But the women would usually only be there for maybe like a maximum of 2 years. Now, they weren't actually allowed to leave, though, unless they got permission to return home. You know what I mean? This one was kind of like the model for the institutions that would come later. The purpose of this particular asylum, or hospital, if you want to call it that, institution, was, quote, to deliver them from shame, because that was a big one. You should be ashamed of getting raped or whatever. From reproach, from disease, from want, from the base society that had either drawn them into vice or prevailed upon them to continue in it to the utmost hazard of their eternal happiness. So they're basically doing you a favor by, like, saving you, I guess.
Imprisoning and enslaving your ass.
Yeah, pretty much. Like I said, these early ones...
Scientology comes up with shit like that, too.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
These early ones seemed less egregious. Like, you don't hear as much about... But maybe you don't hear as much about it because it was a long time ago and everybody was kind of abused and they didn't really, like, think of it as a big thing.
I mean, you can kind of understand the thinking. I mean, the education system of the time there wasn't a system. Rich people just read books. They really didn't have anything. There was no psychology or anything, even though that's kind of not really a science. They didn't really know how societies worked. The only thing that really they had to go by is the Bible, and that shit was fucking dated, And now, real educated people, though, they're reading fucking classics, Greek classics, Greco-Roman stuff, things from other, outside the normal sphere. A lot of those people were pretty open-minded. They wouldn't have liked this kind of shit. But they didn't have the power to change anything. They were being bullied, too, even if they had money. Just kind of a fucking sad time. Just because they were high IQ, they were pretty intelligent back then, but just they acting on bad information and fucking bad traditions. Fucking, they did a lot of damage to people when they didn't have to.
Yeah, that's kind of what makes me sad. Is just, I know you can't go back and change it, but all of the women that were in these, there's like, people don't even remember their names or anything.
Yeah.
Like, some of them, like, lived their whole lives in there, just, like, in total obscurity. It's, like, really, really sad.
Yeah, and these were just people that got unlucky, you know what I mean? Lost their family or fucking no jobs, no money, and just trying to survive on the street and fucking turning tricks or doing something and for pennies probably. And then they just kind of get abducted by these fucking institutions that don't make it any better.
Or dumped there by their shitty families or taken there by the police in some cases, like for just petty offenses.
And had that girl kind of been allowed to ride it out within a couple years, within 10 years, she might have been, the situation might have changed. The economy might have gotten better. She'd move somewhere else, get a new identity, you know. Just because she was on hard times, that didn't mean you lock them up for life, man. That's fucking stupid.
Yeah. Oracle gives, like, I had never actually heard this phrase before. Terminal conscientiousness.
Yeah.
Says creating conditions bound to result in abuse, and then patting yourself on the back for handing out Band-Aids.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going around. But yeah, that's
ideology is very dangerous.
Exactly what happened in this situation. Like I said, it seemed that, or I'm sure that some people were astute enough to make the connection, hey, if everyone wasn't so poor, like maybe if we had some kind of social safety net or something like that that kept people from starving in the street if their spouse died or something like that, like maybe we wouldn't have this epidemic of sex work. Like maybe that's contributing.
Well, I seem to remember in the entire UK area back in the past, this goes back centuries, a lot of the problems that they ran into were almost like self-created. Some king would make some decision and it wouldn't work out, and the next thing you know, fucking a famine fucking, you know what I mean, fucking hits because they wouldn't let them plant or just something stupid like that. I just remember a lot of the bad shit that started wars was just bad rulership, you know? Fucking, so it was the government, okay, well, you don't want to call them governments. I guess they were a government. It was the government itself that was doing all the damage to these people, and then it was also punishing them for it, you know? They'd collapse their own economies and shit. They were kind of dumb.
Yeah. Well, they didn't seem to understand.
They didn't go to schools of economics to know how economies actually ran.
Yeah, they didn't understand how certain actions would have like
repercussions and
down the line. You know what I mean? Which, you know, we still don't because it's complicated, but at least we know better than that nowadays.
At least you know that there will be ramifications for whatever you do eventually.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. So, yeah, CB said, a lot of the girls' dads probably was the one doing it. Yeah. I think in some cases it was. And just got rid of her because she was not a child anymore. Fucking disgusting. Yeah, I think that did happen. Like,
yeah, she wasn't, he couldn't marry her off early enough and didn't want her around the house.
Or, no, he's saying that the dad was abusing her, like sexually abusing her.
Yeah, maybe.
And then she got too old and he was like, we're just going to throw her in these.
Yeah,
I'm sure that probably happened. And, well, I know of a
couple.
And
blamed it on her. You seduced me.
Don't they always?
Yeah.
Like I said, it's always our fault.
I can't control my dick because of you.
Yeah, it's always our fault.
Yeah. That booty of yours has got mind control powers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't win. So the ones in Ireland, like I said, so they operated from about the 1700s into the early 20th century, kind of in that mold where, the women who were largely sex workers, that was kind of the purpose of them, or people who were believed to be in danger of falling into sex work. So I guess just like poor women,
Poor women that looked good. Oh, you're gonna be hooking soon, so we gotta lock you up.
We'll get into that a little bit too, but yeah,
you're too pretty to be just let to run around like that. Not with that red hair.
Yeah, that did happen.
Like, that did happen. Yeah, her hair was too red, so you couldn't let her out.
Like we're too pretty.
Yeah.
But yeah, that happened too. Yeah. But yeah, so it seemed like it was mostly focused on sex workers, and from what I understood, most of the ones from the 1700s, like through the 1800s, it wasn't great conditions, obviously, but the women were generally paid. It was a pittance, but they were paid. You know what I mean? And it wasn't like super hard industrial labor, I don't think. I'm sure there were exceptions to that. However, things kind of changed when Ireland got its independence from Britain in 1922. Now, what happened there was that Ireland particularly wanted to differentiate themselves from England, which they saw as godless, right? So they essentially, there's still Protestants there, obviously, hence the Troubles, like later on. But they essentially let the Catholic Church take over pretty much everything. Because the Catholic Church already had very strong roots in Ireland, and they had a lot of infrastructure already built up. And because Ireland had just got its independence in the 1920s, like the government didn't really have a lot of its own infrastructure. So they were kind of like borrowing from the Catholic Church, and the Catholic Church was taking total advantage of that. And in 1937, the church was actually given what they called a special position in the Constitution of Ireland when they wrote it out. And in that Constitution, they also said that a woman's role was as a mother in the home. And that's kind of what your deal was. Anyone that deviated from that, you were going to have a bad time. So that's kind of set the stage for the worsening abuses in these kinds of institutions. Like I said, I don't think they were great prior to this, but after this happened and after the Catholic Church kind of essentially like took over the shit. Now the government is totally complicit in this too, and were until the 1990s. At least they kind of admitted it. The Catholic Church will not to this day, but they were acting in collusion. They knew what was going on. They didn't give a shit. They were making money. They were keeping fallen women or troubled people like off the street, or so they thought. And so they didn't really give a crap. So it's estimated that between 1922, Irish independence, and 1996, when the last Magdalene laundry closed in Ireland, that more than 10,000, I've heard 11,000 also, women and girls were admitted to these laundries. Now, there were 4 Catholic orders that operated the laundries in Ireland. I believe there were a ton of them. These were the Sisters of Our Lady of Charity of the Refuge. A little bit of a mouthful there. The Good Shepherd Sisters. The Sisters of Mercy, not the band. And the Sisters of Charity. Now, what they started to do was that these institutions, because remember, even from the very beginning, they were putting these women to work, like doing crafts and shit like that, like to make money. So, as time went on, the institutions became commercial laundries. And they also became for-profit businesses. So these laundries they're big, they were huge, like, facilities. They would take in laundries from, schools, hospitals, hotels, the army, and also from, like, all the government buildings and stuff like that. Like, everybody's sheets and clothes and pillowcase and all that kind of shit. Towels and all that. And it was a lot. And they all had contracts with these Magdalene laundries. So they would send all their shit there. Now, I will also note, too, that when the women were not working in the laundries, which they were every day, all day, from morning till night, they would make them do other stuff, like make other crafts. Like I said, like do needlepoint. I think some of them said they made rosaries, that kind of shit, or made sweaters. And then they would sell those also.
Had to go out and get ice. You were saying that when I was gone, you were saying that they were, doing... The laundries they had, bigger commercial accounts?
Yeah.
That they were doing, and they were probably,
for the government, the army.
Linked in with the state, yep.
Hotels, hospitals, schools.
So there you go. So the state had a vested interest in keeping it going.
Of course they did.
Yeah.
Well, that's why it went on for so long.
Right. Saving money.
Because they were making money off it. Now, as I mentioned, when these first started out, the term fallen women, that was usually meant sex workers. However, by the end, and even before Ireland got its freedom, like by the end of the 19th century, Magdalene laundries started broadening their horizons, I guess. So it didn't just have to be sex workers that were thrown in there. There were women who had been abused or raped, even by family members. Girls who were orphaned, like their parents had died. Women whose husbands had died and they were destitute. Basically, or anybody who was like kind of outspoken, a little bit weird. Anybody who didn't conform to these very, very rigid strictures of the time. And as I mentioned, some people were forced in there because they were quote unquote too pretty. Because they thought it was more likely that you were going to fall into sin because you looked like that So they were trying to like nip that in the bud.
Attacking their own
So
genome.
if you were basically too hot,
yeah, that's ridiculous.
They would put Bailey Sarian said that because she did a show about this too, and it was
ridiculous.
like super funny. And she's like, this was my favorite reason. If you were too hot, they would put you in there.
Man,
that was a totally legit.
Rough.
That was a totally legit reason.
So yeah, you're like fucking.
Because you were more likely to become a sex worker.
Yeah, but that's an immutable feature of you. You can't control that. And then another thing is that the genetic impact. They fucking culled out some of their best looking of their poor girls.
I'm sure they did.
And then they didn't have descendants, so those genes were lost. What a fucking travesty. That's a crime against humanity.
Well, it's a crime against humanity anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, I know people get more upset when it's pretty people than ugly people, but you know what I mean.
I was talking to Jenny. I was talking to Jenny about certain things in other fucking cultures between East versus West. If you ever look at any of these cultures that have been practicing arranged marriages for fucking thousands of years, those cultures, every bit of sexiness is sucked out of those cultures. Because you don't have to be sexy to get married. You don't even have to be an accomplished man, really. You don't have to be good looking or anything. So there's nothing to reinforce sexual attraction or romance. Look at those, China, India, certain
well, they don't
countries
have
in the
any
Middle East.
reason to like step up their game because they know they're just going to be handed.
They're just going to be handed a bride.
A woman.
Yeah, and then you look at Greco-Roman cultures, and the West that descended from those. That was fucking Darwinism. That was Charles motherfucking Darwin. You had to go out and fight for a mate. You had to be able to provide something for women. At least security. But really what they wanted was a good time, a handsome face, fucking protection, entertainment. And then the women had to do their part. So, fucking sexy cultures. Yeah. West is sexy. Everybody says that. Everybody knows. Everybody knows.
It's okay. We're proud of it.
Mm-hmm.
We can't help ourselves.
Can't help it. It was social Darwinism.
But yeah,
only the best looking people fucking made it over each generation. You go back a couple generations in the beginnings of photography and look at some of the white people back in those days. They're not quite as good looking as they are today, are they? Because there's not as many of them being born anymore.
Well, and I should note too that now we have better nutrition, better makeup, photo filters, all kind of stuff.
But like dating, dating helps because you can choose a mate more precisely, one that'll work out for you, one you like.
I was gonna say too, even though the express purpose of these houses, at least from the beginning, was to reform sex workers or try to like make some dent in the population of sex workers on the street. Did that do anything? Of course not. Because it was, like I said, everyone was fucking poor. You can't really do anything about that if that's your only choice. So them taking in all these sex workers and supposedly rehabilitating them, it didn't do jack shit, you know what I mean? For the sex worker problem, if you want to call it that. So, so the thing about it is that and and a lot of people that have written about this said, even if that was the stated purpose of that, like going back to the 18th century, as the 19th and 20th centuries came along, and especially in Ireland, like where the government became entwined with the Catholic Church and these laundries started to, were for-profit businesses, they obviously did not care about reforming prostitutes anymore. They basically just wanted to make some fucking money, you know what I mean? And the thing about it was that these ones in Ireland did not pay the women at all. So they were basically like slave labor, you know what I mean? So there was that. And the thing about it was that these laundries, because they had these big government contracts, army contracts, all this other kind of stuff, it behooved them to get as many free workers in there as they could. Basic economics, right? Because like I said, they weren't paying these women. They were living there. It was kind of like a prison, and they didn't let them out. So they started to widen, as I said, the definition of fallen women, like the kind of person that could be put into these institutions. Now, there were a small percentage of women that did go into these willingly. But the thing about it is that I'm not really sure how much knowledge they had of what was going on in there, because there was a general perception that, one, because it was the Catholic Church, I mean, everyone was like super Catholic in Ireland, right? And they thought, well, the church, they runs everything. No one they couldn't possibly be doing anything nefarious. You know what I mean? They're taking care of everything and they have all this stuff. And like, so I think that the prevailing attitude was that these institutions are good. They're educating these women that need education. And they're talking mostly about moral instruction, not really about like classic education. So they thought that it was like a needed service. I don't think they understood the extent of the abuse that was going on in there, that these women were incarcerated, essentially. They were not allowed to leave. And they were being exploited. Like I said, they were forced to work all day, every day, like for no money. And were barely fed. And
they're inmates. Like they're prisoners.
Yeah, they're essentially prisoners.
Yeah.
And it was slave labor, is what it was. Yeah. So, but I don't know if a lot of people knew that, because some people that either went there willingly because they thought, oh, I'm kind of a fucked up person. It's like, I'll get some education or I'll get some training and then I'll be able to go out in the world. And I think some people's parents who put their daughters in there, like, as their daughter was maybe kind of a tearaway or kind of a pain in the ass or whatever, it's like, we're going to send her in there to get some instruction. And then she's like a fucking inmate. She ends up dying in there.
They can't get her back out?
No, not as far as I know. Or even if they wanted to. I kind of feel like maybe they'd... Well, because that was one thing, is that they didn't really let you have any contact with your family.
So they would just vanish in there.
Or if they did, it was very rare. And if you wrote letters to your family, that nuns would either intercept them or they would censor them. Before they went out. Because they would read all your shit. You know what I mean?
CB said that the nuns were molesting the girls too.
Yeah.
They don't fucking surprise me.
Oh, I don't doubt it.
What kind of fucking nun would want to go work in a place like that? Somebody who'd want to get their hands on a girl.
Yeah, some kind of freak.
Freaks, man. Those are freaks.
Yeah. Why would you even want to do this? I don't understand why you'd want to do it.
So, wasn't just them, though. I mean, the orphanages, secular orphanages were like that, too. Going way back to the 1800s and 1900s. That's what happened to old Carl Panzeram. There's an orphan here in the United States. The other orphans and the staff was molesting him, and he turned him into a fucking monster. One of the most deadliest fucking gays you'd ever fucking think of. Hated men. Motherfucker was... he was misogynistic against men. Man, never harmed hair on a woman's head, but just went on a killing spree, just raping and killing men and boys. Fucking monster, man. And all because of molestation inside those orphanages and then later on prisons.
Well, like I said, anyone who... Obviously, you do need some type of place. You need orphanages. You need stuff like that. For, people that have nowhere else to go.
Obviously. Have oversight on that shit, though.
But, you have to kind of vet people that work there, because there are a certain type of people that when they encounter, a vulnerable population like that, will absolutely take advantage.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's the majority. I'm just saying that there's a significant minority of people that are that want to be, that want to be a priest or want to be, work at a orphanage or because they want to take advantage of people who can't say no.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, according to Panzeram,
probably more common.
According to Panzeram, that was real common in the 1800s. You would think a place like that would just attract a shit ton of them. They'd probably work their way high up in the system, too.
And the thing about, and particularly back in those days, I don't think it would happen to quite the extent now, because back then,
Internet.
There's a feedback loop. Yeah. Once you'd get one shithead in there, and then he would tell all his friends, ooh, we're all going to come work here.
And then they're all getting promoted. They're promoting each other.
Right, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
And it was a lot more, it's fucked up to say, but it was a lot more accepted back, or nobody gave a shit, really.
Yeah.
It seemed like people didn't give a shit the way they give a shit nowadays.
No, humans... Not all humans were worth the same. I mean, just throughout history, if you look at it, some people worth more than others. That goes all the way back to the fucking Roman era.
And it's still true, but at least people are aware of it now and try to do better. But There's
here in the U.S., you do have constitutional rights. The laws have to conform to your constitutional rights. It might take years for a law to get overturned, in theory. But it's one of the better ways of doing it. It has kind of fucking weeded certain things out, especially during the age of the internet. You can't hide anything anymore. Now the cell phones and internet, I think, improved a lot of shit, man.
Yeah, I mean, I would not want to go back, like I said.
Everybody's got something in their pocket more powerful than a gun, and I know it. I made a living with a gun. A damn phone. Much more powerful than a gun. It's got a camera on it. You can pull that shit out. You can just destroy somebody with a damn clip.
Well, and that's what I'm saying is that, you know, I think too that, like, among certain segments there's a misperception again that there's more crime or more whatever, immorality or whatever the fuck you want to call it. Like nowadays, no, absolutely not. That this shit has always been going on. It's just that back in the day there was nobody, you didn't see it. There was no way of, like, you couldn't film it with your fucking cell phone and put it on the internet. Look at this, and like millions of people seeing it.
In the U.S.,
you just suffered in silence, and nobody knew about it for years and years.
In the U.S., the worst, most violent period was like the 1970s. Bad, terrible. That's where all the serial killers, murderers, fucking just terrible.
I think the 80s was actually the peak, but the 70s was really bad.
There was something about the quality of the 70s murderers was fucking nasty.
Yeah,
I think I'm going to go back to that leaded gasoline. I think that was a big.
Like I said, you're not the only person. A lot of people say that. I think that was definitely a big factor.
Yeah, it's like those lead pipes in fucking Rome. Only the rich people had fucking running water, and it ran through lead pipes, and they were fucking mad as a hatter.
Yeah.
It did all kinds of weird shit. Lead poisoning. Make you crazy and violent.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy. So, the thing about these Magdalene laundries, even though people, women that were admitted to them, the youngest I heard, at least of the ones in Ireland, was 8 years old. The oldest one was 89. But the thing about it, there was only one of the laundries that would admit pregnant women. And here's the thing. It wasn't just the laundries. There was a whole system. So you also had mother and baby homes. And then you had industrial schools, or training schools, as they called them. That was like the kind of place that Sinead O'Connor was in. And then you had the laundries. What we generally have, and a lot of times they were all on the same land. You know what I mean? Like it was like several buildings, like a compound. What would happen, the mother and baby home was where you went if you were an unwed mother. Because, of course, your family couldn't stand the shame of seeing your face and your big pregnant belly. So they would send you off there to have your baby. They would take the baby away from you when it was born and put the baby in an orphanage, and then they would usually foster it out to a wealthy family, sometimes in the U.S., so sometimes they would send the baby to like another country and you would never see them again. And then they would take the mother and put her in the laundries.
So that was for life, usually.
Yeah. Now, the industrial schools, that was usually where, that was for more like younger, like teenage girls. Like, they would put them in there if they were, like, troublemakers or whatever. They would go in there.
Too intelligent.
And then, yeah. And then when they got old enough, then they would go to the laundries, too. But like I said, some of the little kids, because there was one woman who was talking about her time there. She said she was sent to the industrial school, but that when they woke her up at 5 a.m, she would go in this underground tunnel to the laundry, and they just put her to work.
Yeah.
And her parents thought that she was going there to get an education, but that she wasn't. They just put her to work all day.
Huh.
And, like, she couldn't get out. So,
what years are these we talking about now?
She was in there in the 60s.
So we're not talking 1800s. We're talking
No.
era.
Yeah, these women are still alive, and they're not, like, super old.
Yeah.
I mean, this woman, I saw the interview with her, which was from 2009. So she was older, but
she was not
ancient.
Old. Yeah.
Yeah, so like I said, this is a fairly recent. There's still like a lot of women. I think I saw like as of maybe like 9 years ago, I think 600 women that they know of are still alive that were in these. Those are just the ones they know of. Because a lot of women, here's the fucked up thing. A lot of women that were in these, back then there was a stigma about it. So even if you got out, she's like, they would never tell anybody,
you don't tell anybody
that they were in there. Like, and a lot of them left. Like, a lot of them, fled, to England. Right. Because they just were like, fuck this place, fuck this country. You know what I mean? And they took off.
Now, this is happening in Southern Ireland.
No, it's Ireland.
Just Ireland? But what about Northern Ireland?
That's a different
That's
thing.
what I'm saying. So, okay. Northern Ireland, I believe, is fucking Protestant. Southern Ireland is Catholic. It's more... They're more like the British, I think, right? I don't really know that culture that well. All I do know is that the damn Southern British... The Southern Irish are going, that talking about the Northern Irish, saying that's not our culture. And I don't really know the difference between the two cultures. They look
it'd be
they look the same to me,
It'd be no.
From what I've seen on fucking internet, they look the same to me.
Well, that doesn't matter, does it? I mean, look at how the English and the Welsh hate each other.
Yeah. Y'all are the same. From the American point of view, y'all are the same.
They are, but they're not. I mean, they do have a different history, though.
Yeah. Well, you could say same could be said for the fucking United States, though.
Yeah, that's
We got 4 or 5 different regions here, and they mostly don't like each other.
Yeah. Well, like I said, so it's the same thing.
Yeah. But the thing is the distance is so much, and there's different ethnic makeups to the fucking different regions.
Yeah.
We have more of a reason to hate each other than the British do. Than the British and the Irish do. From our point of view, that's all the same neighborhood. There's a little bitty place.
No, I can totally see why the Welsh and the Irish hate the English.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
I totally see, but it's nothing against the English. I actually quite like the English, but I mean, historically, I can see where that rancor comes from. I'm just saying that.
As an outsider, they all look alike to me. They all
right,
kind of
but
sound alike.
That's the thing.
Look alike.
You're an outsider, though.
Yeah. They just seem to be about
It's just like everything else. If you're an outsider, everything looks really similar. But when you get in there and get all the
Yeah, Jen's lived there. See, so I didn't live there. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's honestly, the cultures are different. You know what I mean? They're similar, but they're different in ways I'm not really sure I can articulate. But yeah. So all of these places would be on one plot of land. So you'd get dumped off there, like your poor mom, who got knocked up out of wedlock, and not always by her choice, right? Sometimes she got raped. Sometimes she was molested by a brother, uncle, dad, and of course it was her fault. So if she got pregnant, her whole family was ashamed, so she would be sent to the mother and baby home, and then the baby would be sent to the orphanage and sent away, and then she would be thrown into the laundry for however long. There seemed to be no, they wouldn't tell them it's oh, you'll get out. It's not like prison where they're oh, you're in for 10 years and then they let you out. You're just in here whenever. And so you were either in there for life, or some of the women said that sometimes when they let people out, they would just let you out unexpectedly. They didn't tell you that you were getting out. And they just turned you out just with your clothes on your back, bye, good luck.
That's because it needed a bed. I
guess so.
A new girl came, they had to get rid of somebody, so they got rid of them. Wow.
And a lot of these women had been in this system their whole lives. They were not educated. They were completely institutionalized.
Yeah.
They were a lot of times had injuries from the machinery and stuff like that, because they didn't get any medical care.
Wonder what they did when they got out.
I don't know, man. Some of them probably died, I imagine.
Yeah, ended up being homeless.
Yeah. I mean, what else could they do? So yeah.
You definitely wouldn't want to go to the church, would you?
Yeah, they were probably fuck that shit.
No, you're going back in.
Mm. It's just fucked up. It's just so it was a whole system, and you couldn't really get out. You know what I mean? So all of them were run by nuns. And it was just kind of you could get sent there by your family. Like I said, you get sent there if you were an orphan or if you didn't have anywhere else to go. Some girls got sent there just because of minor infractions. Hey, I stole a loaf of bread or some shit like that. Or were just kind of delinquents or whatever, as teenagers. Also, people were sent there from psychiatric hospitals. So people that had mental issues, shit like that. And they would just throw you in there. And
yeah, CB, he goes, yeah, those bitches were jealous of women that were better looking than them.
Well, yeah, that was probably a big factor.
Ugly ass fucking bull dykey ass fucking nun looking at that pretty girl going, oh no, we're locking you up, bitch. We're locking you up.
Oh, you're gonna become a hooker one day.
Yeah, and then you're gonna become a hooker. We let these men see you, and then next thing you know, she's bumping and grinding on that little girl. Fucking nasty.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just the thing about it, and I think this happened because they had some of these in Canada too, and I was like watching something about ones in Canada, and at least the Canadian ones, and I think this happened in Ireland too, is that after a while they didn't even like. I mean, it was run by the Catholic Church, and they were like super secretive about what they were doing, and like nobody checked up on it. I think after a while they didn't even really pay lip service to rehabilitate. Oh, we're rehabilitating these poor fallen women anymore. They were just basically like became prisons pretty much. Like they were just punitive. Like these women are sinners and they need to be punished. Like even if they didn't really do anything, didn't really have any like choice in the matter. So they put all these ladies in. So I saw some of these documentaries and there were interviews with a lot of these women that had been in these. And there was one woman named Mary Smith, and she was 16 when she was sent there. She actually couldn't remember how long she was in there. It was a long time. Her mother she was kind of one of the ones that her mom had been in one of the institutions too. And then she had been born in one. But then I guess she got out for a little while and was like living with grandparents or something. And then they died or something. And then she got like thrown back in there. And one of the things she said was, and this is a quote from her, she said, "We used to have to line up, and they," meaning the nuns, "used to make us hold our hands, and the nuns used to say to us, 'Say after me, I am a nobody.' They used to keep telling us to say that, 'I am a nobody.'"
Wow.
Another
building
thing,
up their confidence.
Yeah. Another thing that a number of them said was that when you first got there, because this one woman, her name was Maureen, and she said that she was sent there. She said she was actually sent there by her mom, who thought it was a legit school. And her mom had moved to England, like with her stepdad. And her stepdad didn't get along. And so her mom was like, fuck that kid. I'm going to get rid of that kid. I'm just going to send you off to school.
So she pressed reset.
Yeah.
Okay, getting rid
So
of
she
kids
sends
anyway.
Maureen as a teenager back to Dublin, puts her on a plane.
That's a pretty name. I always liked that name.
Yeah, that's a very common name in Ireland.
Is it? Yeah.
I don't know about now, but it was like back in these times. So she takes a plane back to Dublin, and she said, "I landed at the airport, at Dublin Airport, and I got met by the police, and the police took me to this laundry. I think it's called High Park." And she's like, it was the middle of the night. And she's like, and I go in the place, and there's this old nun who met me at the door. And she said the first thing she said was that your name is not Maureen, whatever her last name was. You are now Monica. They gave you new names. Well, some of them just named you a number, like a prison. But a lot of them said you're not your name anymore and you're not allowed to tell anybody your real names. They were like stripping you of your identity.
Yeah, it's kind of like the French Foreign Legion.
Yeah, and they would give you like saints' names. So this is your name now. You're not allowed to have your actual name.
In the French Foreign Legion, when you join up, when they accept you, and that's a fucking rough outfit, they give you what's called a nom de guerre, a war name. They usually fuck with you. You'll be white, they'll give you an African name. You'll be African, they'll give you a fucking white name. You know, they give you... But the nom de guerre is to fucking try to hide what your real identity was, in case you ever get captured, or... Because you're going to be doing kind of fucking spooky shit somewhere in Africa, probably. So killing people who are, say, like, mining gold illegally outside of a fucking gold mine that the France owns somewhere in fucking Africa. So, but that's weird. They're kind of depersoning them.
Yeah.
And they're trying to make them difficult to track from outside investigators. And families. That's what they're doing.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. That way you're vanishing into an institution. Yeah. And you're just gone. That's what the Foreign Legion is going to do. But you're kind of doing it more willingly, I guess. A lot of guys are running from charges. They're, wanted for some kind of crime.
Yeah, this is kind of a different situation.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Like most of the women that turned up here turned up here not because they chose it. So yes, they would change the name. That was a big thing. Like I said, some of them just had numbers, like a prison. But a lot of them would change their names to generally saints' names, like religious names. And then they would usually, sometimes a lot of them would like shave their heads or, cut their hair all fucking raggedy looking. And give them like shapeless uniforms that they'd take all your shit away. Just give these shapeless uniforms.
Give them no identity.
Yeah. They were basically told that they were never to talk. They were never to tell anyone their real name or where they were from or anything about them.
Oh, shit, that'd drive you crazy.
Well, yeah. They were never allowed to contact their families. I think some of them did actually have very, very rare family visits. But like I said, if you wrote letters, the nuns would either intercept them or they would censor them. If they did something wrong, like they weren't working fast enough or something like that, they would be denied food and water.
This is all the hallmarks of a criminal cult.
Yeah.
This is a cult.
Mm-hmm.
State-sponsored cult.
Yeah.
Which there have been several of those that I know about, even in Argentina. Okay, yeah, interesting. Okay. Yeah, this is evil.
Yeah.
This is institutionalized evil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They would lock you in a cabinet, like all by yourself, for several days. Or they would lock you outside in the freezing cold. They would do that too.
That's North Korean level stuff.
And CB just mentioned this too. Several also reported being stripped naked in front of all the other inmates, like when they first arrived.
Yeah.
And then the other inmates were encouraged to point and laugh at her.
Huh.
Like for shame.
Weird. Trying to break them down mentally.
Yeah. One woman, this is the one that was reading her statement, and it was really upsetting. She said that whenever she did something she wasn't supposed to do, or whenever the nun, whenever she sneezed wrong or something like that, the nuns would strip all her clothes off, throw her down on the ground, and beat her on the ass and like on her vagina, like on her labia, with a stick, and then throw pots of urine on her.
Yeah. This is all pretty heavy shit here. This is all, if an institution is doing this to massive amounts of people, this is what you would call crimes against humanity.
Yes.
And the staff...
Well, the UN had something to say about that when it came out, yes.
Yeah, the staff needs to be hunted down the same way Nazi camp runners
yes, I agree.
Down. And they need to be hanged by the neck until they're dead.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. When you're dealing with Thomas motherfucking Ross, he kills you.
You can't
let this
people
go.
Get away with this.
Yeah, and you can't put them to prison. You must kill them. You have to kill them. If not, other people will do it. Never follow any orders that are illegal.
I kind of feel like that. I don't know.
And they're following illegal orders.
I kind of feel like a lot of these Catholic institutions, no, I'm not shitting on Catholics, just the regular ass people, but the institution itself, I've always thought was an evil institution.
Yeah.
At that level, and it's just kind of like whatever they can get away with, they absolutely will. And it's just like whenever they run shit, it's just like human abuses are just fucking rampant.
Yeah, and this is already...
And it's all has to do with their mindset.
Yeah, and everything you've told me now, this is already a cult. It's already criminal. It's already conducting crimes against humanity. All right. This is on the level of the German work camps. On that level. Especially during the early years. But it's that same kind of crime. And the people who staffed these and knew about them and ordered them inside the church and outside, they need to be hunted down, prosecuted, and executed in an international crimes tribunal. You can't let Ireland or England do this. They're too weak. You have to give them to some kind of an international organization or hand them over to Russia, have them kill them. If not, you can't make an example out of them. You can't spread horror or terror through the ranks of the enemy. When you have evil people like that, the only thing they understand is horror and fear. That's all I understand. If I'm not scared of you, I'm going to do whatever I want. Just telling you the truth. Now, I have a code. Jen can attest to that.
I was going to say. So
I have a code.
You're not scared of me, are you?
No. I have a code. I protect my own. It's just that if your out group and I think you're an enemy, I don't care what you do or say. That's not the life that I lived, you know.
But yeah, so for sure there was like a sexual component to a lot of stuff, because a lot of the girls did report that they were usually stripped naked and beaten and stuff like that. One woman in particular reported that she was often taken into a room, and this priest would make her sit there and watch him masturbate, and then he would ejaculate all over her.
Yeah.
Like on several occasions.
Yeah, well, that's just open sexual abuse right there.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't even attempt to justify that.
No.
No.
Of course not.
They're getting off on all this.
Of course they are.
So
well, and like I said,
so they've all become sadists basically.
Yeah.
In this institution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, I think that happens when you have vulnerable charges who they don't have any power. They can't speak against you. They can't do anything.
What's it called? The Milgram experiment? What called the Milgram? When they took all those fucking college students and told them that they were prison guards, and then they gave them a bunch of other.
No, the Milgram experiment, I think, was when they were shocking.
When they were shocking people. What was the one where they were pretending to be guards?
I think that's just the prison guard experiment.
Prison guard, yeah. That's what they're doing. They get worse and worse because there's no one to check power.
If nobody is stopping you, sadly, a lot of people will just...
They'll max that shit out.
Now, I will note that a lot of people did not do that. But an alarming amount of people did. Because they were allowed to. Like, nobody stopped them. You know what I mean? And maybe they felt a little bit bad about it, but not bad enough. Not bad enough.
No, that entire institution has to be punished the same way the SS was punished. You just do it like that.
Yeah. Like
you're a member of the SS? Okay, well, which SS? So Waffen SS, SS police, or security? Security, okay, we're going to kill you. Yeah, SS security fucking manned death camps.
Because like I said, this is the same kind of shit.
Yeah, right.
Like I said, we're not minimizing the death camps, but this is the same kind of shit.
It's in the same ballpark.
It's in the same ballpark.
Yeah,
it's what they were doing
thinking.
To these girls.
If they could kill them, they would have.
And honestly, it wouldn't shock me if they did.
Maybe they did, yeah.
Because, we'll get to the mass grave thing later on. Okay. But you know what I mean? I don't know if anybody straight up murdered anybody, but I'm also not saying that it's like if that did happen, probably most people would be like, I don't think they would have given much of a shit about it, to be honest with you. Because like I said, the thing about this type of institution, particularly run by the Catholic Church or any kind of like hierarchical religious institution like this, they think that they are better than you, that you are subhuman, that you deserve this treatment because you wronged them somehow.
Yeah.
Because you are weak, you are less than. So, therefore, anything they do to you can be justified. And I'm sure that that's how they saw it.
By American standards. You go back to our traditions. You go back to our Constitution and everything that we did. It all came from the Enlightenment. And the British knew all about the Enlightenment period. Okay. This is in direct violation of fucking what the Enlightenment was all about. You can't let this stand. That's that's criminal activity. It's got to be punished.
Yeah,
you got to max that shit.
Like
out.
I said, this is
you got to max that punishment out.
Nobody that does this to another person
can't be allowed to walk around.
I mean, you can't just walk around.
No.
I agree with you.
Yeah, they have to be hanged found guilty, and hanged by the neck until they're dead. That's what you do with these people. And they probably all got away with it.
They did.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Yep.
They're still walking around. I bet a lot of the nuns are probably dead now because they were like old as shit back then, probably. But I think a couple of them are still alive, at least a few years ago. Because we'll get into some shit they said later on, which made me want to punch the fucking screen. But yeah. So another woman whose name was Elizabeth Coppin, she actually grew up in this system. What happened with her was that, again, she's 2 years old, and her stepfather was abusive. And so she was taken out of the home, which that's good, but then she was put into one of these kind of places. Not so good. Would have been cool if they could have just put her with another nice family, but no, that wasn't how that happened. They put her in an institution. Now, there was a court order that said she was supposed to be a ward of the court until she was 16. However, she was put into these laundries and actually didn't get out until she was 19. And she later gave her story. She said that she was starved, that the nuns just beat the shit out of her until there were welts all over her body, locked her in isolated cupboards for several days at a time. And if she, through trauma or something like that, peed herself, they would make her take off her undergarments and put them on her head and wear them. When she was about 13 years old, she actually tried to kill herself by setting herself on fire. She lived, but she was never given any medical treatment. So that's nice, isn't it? And this is a quote from her. She actually said this to the New York Times. She said, "It dawned on me that I would be there for life, that I'd be buried in a mass grave. There were whispers that went around, even back then, people knew about that. It's I saw the people who were there, who were broken, institutionalized, illiterate, from living in a dark, dark place with no way out. I remember asking myself the questions, what will I do? How will I get out?" Now, you missed it, but, this girl... I'll repeat it because you weren't here.
Yeah, I had to go.
But, she got beaten up really bad, locked in cupboards for several days at a time. If she peed herself because of the trauma and stuff like that, the nuns would make her take off her underwear and wear it on her head. She also tried to kill herself when she was 13 by setting herself on fire. And she lived, but they didn't give her any medical attention.
Oh, man, so she was just burned up.
Yeah.
What part of her body was burned?
I don't know. Now, she actually did manage to escape the laundry when she was 17. However, 3 months later, she was found by child protection workers, like a police or whatever, and they forced her to go back. And then she was there for another 2 years.
Okay. She kept fighting. She got out of there.
Yeah.
Yeah, good for you.
I mean, I can't imagine, going through that shit. And, when they get out, what the fuck are you going to do? You know what I mean? They turn you out you don't have any education. Yeah. You're all fucked up and traumatized and shit like that.
And they're women. They don't have a lot of physical strength, and they don't know what's going on in the outside world. So they're physically and mentally handicapped versus their captors.
Yeah.
I mean, you put me in that situation, I just fight my way out of it. I just popping chicks' necks and shit. You know what I mean? I'd get out of there.
But I mean, a lot of them were put in there when they were little girls.
They're little girls. They don't have what it takes to.
If they don't know any different.
I'd grab one of those nuns, the main one, and I'd fucking use her as a hostage to get out. And if they wouldn't go for that, I'd just break her neck and then grab the next one and do that again. You kill 4 or 5 of them, they'll let you go. Then steal a car and beat the fuck out of there.
I mean, depending on what year it was. There was another woman named Marina Gambold who actually also gave her story in one of the documentaries. And she said that she worked in the laundry. And like I said, this is an industrial laundry. These are these big, huge machines with big sheets and towels from hotels and schools and the army and shit like that. So it wasn't just little fucking piddly shit. This was and they said that injuries were very, very common. Burns, people getting hands crushed and shit like that. And they never got any medical attention either. And they would make you work all day, every day, from pretty much dawn to dusk. And like I said, when you had downtime, they would make you do other stuff, like make rosaries or knit sweaters or whatever. And then
they kept you busy. They didn't want you to escape.
Yeah, and then they would give you some bread and some, dripping, fat drippings. And then you'd have to pray and go to bed, and then they'd wake you up at dawn the next day. And one of the women too said that she still had nightmares, and she's much older now. She said she still had nightmares, and she wakes up in the middle of the night thinking there's someone in black standing right next to her bed, because that's what the nuns used to do.
Wear black.
She's they used to come and stand by your bed at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
And make sure you weren't doing anything. You know what I mean? Right. So it's you'd wake up and there'd be this black figure standing. So she still had nightmares about that this many years later, because they were always doing that shit. This Marina said that she basically was starved. That's all they gave you was a piece of bread and some fat dripping. That was pretty much it. And she's and then in the same room, like the nuns and the priests and stuff would be eating like super nice food, like in front of them. You know what I mean? Because of course they did. She said one time that she accidentally dropped like a cup or something like that and it broke. And the nuns punished her. They took this big cord and they tied it like real tight, like around her neck. Yeah. And they left it there for 3 days. And it's like, and they made her for 3 days like eat off the floor. Like they would dump her food on the floor and she had to eat it off the floor. Like I was like, that's nice.
Yeah.
So yeah. So as the time went on and the laundries needed more bodies, they needed more workers.
Yeah.
And they weren't going to pay them, obviously. So they would just take anybody. Like they would just, like I said, if they came from like a mental institution or if it was like a petty criminal or an orphan or somebody, like anybody. Somebody that didn't have anybody that would look out for them.
It's what the Nazis called a useless person.
Right.
Yeah.
Which, like I said, it's just...
person they didn't have a use for.
Yeah. It's fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
So...
It's actually a very Nazi mentality, what they're doing.
Well, yeah.
Very Nazi.
It is. It is.
And I don't say that lightly. I know all about the Nazis.
Yeah.
But that's exactly the way they thought.
Yeah, that's exactly
when it came.
Well, like I said, that's the problem with this kind of hierarchical thinking, and you see it a lot in religion, but it's in other belief systems too, where, you know, I'm on the top and you're beneath me.
Yeah.
Therefore,
I don't really have a use for you.
Therefore, you're not useful
really
to me, so I can do whatever I want to you. That's a very, very dangerous mindset and never leads to anywhere.
No,
good.
It always goes to something bad.
And that's why
no concept of individuality. Or that people are a means to themselves. You know, they're isn't that a way to see it? That's not what I would say. People are an end to themselves. We got a mean to themselves, right?
Yeah,
they're their own thing. They don't have, fucking.
They don't have to be useful.
They don't have to be useful to you. Yeah.
To you.
Yeah, fucking. They have to be useful to you and your system, and your government.
Yeah, I mean, kind of.
They're an individual person who's living their own life. They got individual liberties.
Ideal.
Yeah.
And this is not always followed, obviously, but the whole ideal is that every person is a worthwhile person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
even though they're not working for you.
And they deserve the same rights, liberties as everyone else does. Yeah. I mean, that should kind of be standard.
What they're doing in a way is almost kind of like a very national socialist or fucking international socialist mentality between the commies and the Nazis. If you weren't of any use to them, they usually killed you or worked you to death because you just weren't useful. Who are they to fucking say that you're not useful?
Well, see,
they just want something from you.
That's what kind of kills me about it is that... Look, I was always, but I don't know if this is genetic or if it was just from my family upbringing or something like that. You know, when I grew up pretty poor, but I was always kind of taught, look, like, no one's better than you. You're just as good as everyone else. It's like, don't let anybody tell you that you're not, that they're better than you are. Because they're not. They're just a person like you. Everybody's the same, you know what I mean? And
pretty people are better.
Well, yeah. But I'm just saying that's
everybody is.
No, I'm saying inherently
individuals.
Inherently, everybody's kind of the same, or is deserving of the same rights.
You have access.
I'm not saying that other people don't perceive you differently, but that's a different argument.
The way the Enlightenment would explain it is that everyone has equal access to the law, and everyone has the same rights as a human.
Yeah.
You're an individual.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what you did or what you look like or where you came from or any. It shouldn't anyway. It still does, obviously, but it shouldn't.
You're not a tool or a mechanism of the state or your race or anything. You're an individual. You do what you want to do. You are free to do whatever the fuck you want to do, but you are not free to take freedom away from other people without a due process. In other words, they have to be fucking found guilty of some kind of crime, and you have to have the authority to do it. That's the way we do it here in the U.S.
Like I said,
everyone has equal access to the law.
It's an ideal.
Means that you can sue. You can sue people.
Well, you got to have money to sue, though. That's
you got to have money to sue. That's the part of But you can come up. You can get lawyers to work for free. You can make a complaint with the police.
If you're lucky, yeah.
Somebody fucking rapes you. You don't need money. You can go to the cops. Say that man raped me, and there's going to be an investigation. You know that's what they're talking about there.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, like I said, that's kind of the ideal. So. This whole situation, I've never been a type of person. I don't like any kind of hierarchy. I don't like any kind of authoritarianism. I don't like anyone telling me what to do. I don't like anyone thinking they're better than me. I don't really like anything like that, because I'm like, look, you take a shit just like everyone else does. Like, you know, get the fuck over yourself. So this whole thing, where this whole institution, for more than 200 years, this was allowed. It didn't get really bad, I kind of feel like, until like the early 20th century. But this whole institution of this Catholic orders, you know, taking in these poor, pitiful, you know, inferior women, in the guise of helping them, and then just exploiting them for their free labor and abusing them in various ways, you know, probably for their own sexual gratification.
Now, I'm going to attest.
Definitely.
Jan doesn't like authority. She doesn't like to fucking listen, you know, all that. I like that about her, though. She's an individual. Me, I'm the same way. I like to do what I like to do. But the thing is that I like military stuff, and the military situation is a totalitarian dictatorship.
Which, I can't.
But I willingly went into that.
Yeah.
Because it has to be. You can't be free in the military. You just can't.
Like, I get that. I get
Because
the reasoning behind
yeah,
it. But that's why I would never join that.
It's a military situation.
That's why I would never join that.
Yeah, it's a military. It's not a civilian situation. But I understand both systems. But you shouldn't make civilians. Civilians don't do well in totalitarian societies.
They do not. Not
healthy ones. You live with a bunch of North Koreans and they're robots.
Well, nobody can just be the way they are. Everybody has to pretend to be something else.
Yeah,
and I don't like
LARPing.
that either.
They're all LARPing to be a mechanism
because they're afraid.
They're scared. Yeah. Right.
That, you know,
they'll be punished.
They're gonna stick out and they're gonna get like hammered down. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and even, you know, I lived in Korea for a year. And I thought Korea was fucking awesome, but even countries like Japan, too much conformity there. It doesn't. Well, I've been watching what the Japanese ghetto is like. A British guy going to hang out in the Japanese ghetto, and I was like, man, I could go there. Those people were fucking hilarious. They're more like an American, because they were all marginalized people. A lot of them were Koreans. A lot of them were Yakuza and shit. And fucking, I understood that.
I could probably hang with that.
Yeah, they were like totally normal. And they're like considered to be marginalized and semi-criminal in Korea. In Japan. Japan is too conformist for me. Korea was not quite as conformist. The Koreans were sexy for Eastern cultures. Been watching them. They're even getting better looking lately. But I do not like conformist cultures. I just don't like
I said, it's kind of an offshoot of
totalitarianism.
Where it's just like, well, everyone has to be this way.
Yeah,
and if you're not, then
you're wrong.
Then you're wrong.
You're
or
a bad person,
and we can do whatever we want to you. Because, like I said, it's dehumanizing.
Right.
Because you don't look like this or you don't act like this, then therefore you're wrong, and we can do whatever we want to you.
Yeah, but I was impressed with the Japanese ghetto. The Japanese ghetto, the most dangerous places in Japan. They were safe as fuck by American standards.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say.
And the people were just normal and friendly.
That's what's kind of hilarious. That like about all these countries, this dangerous neighborhood. I'm like,
this is the fucking safest neighborhood I've been in. What are you talking about? And they were all just like down to earth and real fucking.
Shit, man, we just had a shootout like right down the street from.
We were gonna do a show about it
in our fucking rural ass.
Yeah, two neighbors had a big shootout between each other, and then they killed cops and everything. The cops got involved.
It was like a mile or two from here.
Yeah.
And we live out in the fucking farmland.
We have what's called Southern family compounds here. I don't know, people outside the South, they don't. Not everybody in the South, but.
Here, hand me that glass. I'll get it.
A lot, yeah, go ahead and get. What'll happen is the Southern family will buy a plot of land, a couple acres, and they'll build a house on it, and then they'll put trailers on it and have fucking family members living in trailers, or it might have more than one house. 2 or 3 houses and a trailer, and a bunch of trucks, and then they're gonna have a big old fucking barn, a prefabricated barn with a concrete bottom that's gonna have trucks and a fucking whole mechanic fucking garage in it. You know, fucking they're decked out. We would call that a Southern family compound. That's a whole family clan with the people that they married. And that's what it was. It was a war between 2 family clans next to each other. One family clan was accusing the other one of diddling children in their own family. And then he started threatening to kill them and shit. And a shootout started. The cops showed up, and the cops assaulted the ones making the complaints. And I think they killed 2 or 3 cops. But then I think they killed the people that were shooting. Well, who was shooting was a woman. An overweight woman in her 50s. In shorts and fucking just flip-flops and shit. And she's fucking got an AR-15. It was a wild story. I don't have all the details. But it was just up a street. A couple weeks. We drove over there and looked at it. And it's just the same thing, you know. You got a road. And then you see the dirt roads going off into the woods. You know. And that's where it happened. You know, it's not the woods here, but it's farmland. And the people that had been here for a long time, the families that have been here for fucking 30, 40 years, this was out in the middle of nowhere back when they were 30 years ago, 20 years ago. So it's grown up around it. You know, we're on a golf course right now. This place is fucking beautiful. You look, it looks like something out of a damn Florida porn movie. Fucking, I got palm trees in front of my fucking 2-story house and fucking. The only thing we don't have is we don't have a community gym and we don't have a community fucking swimming pool, which I wish we had.
I mean, eventually, maybe.
But we got this big fucking. We live in a place
Our old one had that.
Called Black Bear Reserve, and yeah, we got bears and
Everybody's
shit.
gonna Google it.
Yeah, Black Bear Reserve. That's where we live.
Yeah, that's where we live at. One of the first houses on the first street. But yeah, CB said, it's sad we'll never know how many of the women were murdered by the nuns or priests over the years and got away with it. Well, yeah, that's what's kind of scary is that there's no telling. It's like all of this abuse that happened, it's not out of the bounds of possibility that either somebody killed one of the women while they were abusing them or just killed them for shits and giggles. They're just like, just bury him out back. Nobody gives a shit about her anyway. You know what I mean? And sadly, that was kind of true. So, like, I don't think we'll ever know. And, like, you know, I'll get into the mass grave, like, in a little bit. But, yeah. So, like I said, so they put more women into this. And I think, like, even into... Because I was watching a documentary about this. And even in the comments, like, some of the people in there were from Ireland... And remembered, they said, you know, I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and this was still, like, very much a thing that, like, people were afraid of. Like, we didn't want to get sent to one of those places because they would still send you there, like, if you were bad or whatever. And a couple of the people that commented said that their grandmothers or their mothers had been in them and, like, talked about how fucking horrible they were. So this is very much, like I said, this is not ancient history. This is very much... You know, people are still alive that were in these and are not horribly old. You know what I mean? Another thing, and like I said, the mother and baby homes, which are kind of related to these, but probably needs a whole other show. But I wanted to point out that the mother and baby homes where unwed mothers would go to give birth to their babies, and then the babies were usually fostered out. Well, they weren't always fostered out because... In 1975, these two, it was kind of like 2 or 3 boys, I think it was, and they were just like playing in the yard of one of these mother and baby homes, like picking apples or some shit like that. And they saw like this crack, and they kind of were like, what is that? And they just kind of like dug around in there, and they saw like a bunch of skeletons. And it turned out, this was in Tuam, I think is how you pronounce the name of the city. This is a mother and baby home. And they ended up excavating this area. And they found the remains of 800 babies in a septic tank.
How old are we talking about now? Fetuses?
No, babies. Well, like born babies.
Born babies.
So...
Staff must have been knocking them girls up.
No. This was for a mother and baby home.
Okay, all right.
So this is where unwed mothers would come.
Okay. They were killing some of the babies instead of blowing them out.
So either they were killing the babies, and or the babies were dying from the shitty conditions, or the babies had birth defects. I'm sure it was like all three.
Probably a bunch of stuff.
And this caused like a huge fucking scandal.
Maybe if they couldn't fucking get rid of a baby, they just killed it.
Yeah, and like I said, that would not shock me at all. And the Catholic Church, of course, have been like completely mum about that.
Yeah.
Too.
I bet you they threw it in the septic tank alive.
That also would not shock me. Because like I said, this is like, they didn't see, I don't really think they saw these girls, like these women, as people.
No, they hadn't dehumanized.
Yeah.
Well, the shit that they did to them not only dehumanizes the girls, it dehumanizes staff against the girls.
Yeah.
It helps them justify the abuse. They're like, well, they're not real people. We've got them convinced of it, so they're not real people. A real person would go, no, I'm real. These people are weak. Then they despise them.
Yeah. So that was the whole thing. And like I said, mother and baby homes were kind of a slightly different thing, but they were related to these because that was kind of like the entry point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's where you went if you were an unwed mother. Like I said, and that also extended to like girls that were raped by family members or strangers or whatever and got pregnant, unfortunately, like as a result.
Yeah.
And of course it was her fault. So they'd send you off because of the shames. They'd send you one of these places. And then if the baby wasn't healthy or something, they would either kill it or they'd just be like, no medical care. Shoot.
They're doing things dangerous. They're doing very dangerous things to the mental state of the inmates and the staff. And I say this knowing what I'm talking about. I come from fucking very good American military fighting units, fucking out of the 101st and fucking 1st and the 506 Airborne and the 1st 327 Recon Platoon, which I was in both of those. And when your mission is anti-personnel, that's killing people. All right, I'm back in the old army. Okay, this is 90s. This is before all this operations other than warfare and all this fucking empire building was going on, but we were a little bit more, had a Vietnam or World War II type mentality, even though Vietnam was kind of... Anyway, what I'm getting at is what you do in a military combat unit is that you must dehumanize the enemy. If not, you can't kill them. And we dehumanize them by one, imagining them as weak. Then you imagine them as effeminate and despicable, and that they're your...
Because effeminate is subhuman.
Yeah.
Like feminine is subhuman.
Yeah. Well,
that's nice to know.
Well, you're seeing them as men who are effeminate, and that they're weak, all right? And that they're your food, basically. You're a shark, and those are goldfish, all right? So you have to have an ideology of supremacy. If not, you can't kill them. You'll feel bad about it. You have to hate them.
I mean, you should feel bad.
Well, you're doing a mission.
I know that.
The idea is to kill as many enemies as you can, and that's what saves your side. This is a sport, as a contact sport, where dudes die. They get killed. You don't want to die. You don't want your friend to die. So you have to weaponize your own thinking towards the enemy. They don't do that anymore. That's why we lose all these wars. Okay? We don't actually have wars. These are bullshit wars of empire, more like law enforcement. So rich dudes can have their child island and they can live on it with their little girls and shit. That's what they're doing. But what the staff is doing here is they're weaponizing their own minds against these people. So they can kill them. And they're going to kill them slowly over decades until they die of old age. That's still killing somebody. They kept them captive all that time.
Because a lot of women
and used them up.
Here's the scary thing. When they closed the last one in fall of 1996, there were still a handful of women living in there.
Yeah.
And they couldn't let them out because they'd been in there their whole life.
They couldn't adapt. So they were dead. They were basically
They had to
dead.
stay there and let the nuns take care of them
Like
because
zombies.
it's like until
zombies.
they died. Because they didn't know any different.
That's a crime against humanity.
That whole woman's life is like ruined.
At least in my units, wars were declared. The enemy knew you had declared a war against them. You were going to kill them, and you were going to kill them as quickly as possible. There wasn't any of this stuff about keeping somebody weak and defenseless for fucking 30, 40 years. They hadn't committed a crime or anything, nothing wrong with them. They're just a regular person. It's just, no. And here's the thing. The dudes that they were asking us to kill were regular people. They just in another uniform. You know. But soldiers are whores, basically. You know. We're the ultimate male version of a prostitute. You're selling your body to old men to kill his enemies so he can remain powerful. That's all it is. And you're going to die. Or you could die or you're going to kill somebody else. It's a wicked world. It's a very wicked system. That's why, so I say it's like whores. Fucking prostitutes, these poor prostitutes the same way. They're selling their bodies to men so they can survive. Old men, a lot of times. I was kind of selling my body to old men too, but fighting his enemies. Not fucking him. But it's still the same thing. You're a whore. You're basically a whore. Power. People have power over you. They're making you do things.
Yeah, that you wouldn't do normally. Mm-hmm. Leslie brings up the movie Doubt from 2008. That was a great fucking movie. I think that was the one with Philip Seymour Hoffman, right?
Yeah.
I saw that in the theater, actually. Yeah, it's fantastic. CB said it's sad we'll never know how many of the women were murdered by the nuns or priests over the years and got away with it. I think.
I'm sure a bunch of them were probably.
Well, that's what I said, and I'll get into the master.
If you gave them a bunch of problems, they probably would kill you.
Yeah, I'm sure you would. And like I said,
they didn't want to go to jail.
No, of course not. Well, they wouldn't have. Because
if you got out and told the cops, maybe they would. So they just kill you so they wouldn't have
They wouldn't have because it would be this wayward girl's word against the Catholic Church. Maybe. And everybody thought the Catholic Church was like, impeccable, like spotless. So it's like if it was your word. I mean, why do you think they got away with all of that institutionalized like pedophile shit like all that time? Because like nobody believes like a kid.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this priest was doing this and that and the other. No, they would never do anything like that. Yeah, They're a man of God. Yeah.
People got.
They're more likely to do that.
Those generations. It's glad to say that those generations have passed.
Because fuck that.
They were gullible. I mean, Gen X knows. Gen X and I think fucking Gen Z is a little bit gullible, but they'll grow out of it. Don't ever believe authority, man. They're abusive.
Well, the second somebody comes at me with that religious bullshit, I just I'm immediately suspicious.
Any kind of religion, they can turn science into a religion, politics into a religion, any kind of ideology where you're supposed to obey them because they know what's right and you should obey them. When you ever have that dynamic, and I've been through that, through the military way too, and government way. There was a contractor too. They're full of shit. They're just trying to make money and retain power. That's all it is.
Tammy said, I went to the bathroom and when I came back, my little dog was watching Jenny talk on my laptop.
That's because Jenny's sad. She's fucking fascinating.
Hello, puppy.
She's fascinating.
It's funny because our kitties, Pookie likes the, she likes my phone and she likes Tom's tablet. Like, she'll just sit there and look at it. And, like, when I'm on the phone, sometimes she'll come up and, like, rub on it and, like, kind of try to look at it. Like, especially if I have another kitty video on, which I usually do. She'll be like, who's that kitty? And I'm just like, see, that's kitty. And she'll try to, like, she likes, because Tom will sometimes leave his tablet, like, on the floor because he listens to it when he's going to sleep. So he'll leave it on, like, a YouTube video, like, somebody talking or something. And, like, Pookie will come over and, like, try to touch the little person. Like, it's like, what's that person up to? And sometimes she'll, like, pause it and stuff. It's, like, pretty funny. We've thought about, like, getting her some tablet games, but we never did it. I don't know if she would like it that much. But yeah, so the thing about this whole thing is that because there was a perception in Ireland until fairly recently, I guess, or like until like maybe the mid to late 20th century, that that the Catholic Church was A-okay and that whatever they were doing was obviously for the good of the country, not. Then everyone's like kind of okay with it. So people were aware of these laundries, obviously, because they weren't hiding them. Like, the buildings were usually in pretty prominent places, like in the towns and stuff. And there were, like, rumors that it's like, ooh, you don't want to get sent there, you know what I mean? Like, almost kind of like a joke. So people kind of knew what was going on, but I don't think they knew the extent of it. And they thought, well, because the Catholic Church was involved, that there can't be anything bad going on. So I kind of feel like nobody really did or said anything about it. One author that I saw that wrote a book about this said that, sadly, they thought the reason that these laundries started to decline was not because of any kind of public outrage about human rights abuses or anything like that, which, would have been justified, but because their services weren't really required anymore because now we had washing machines and industrial washing machines and stuff like that. So the businesses were no longer profitable.
Yeah, they went technologically obsolete.
And she's like, I hate to say that, but that's probably more of the reason, like, why they started declining, rather than because anyone was outraged about like all the shit going on.
Yeah, that's another thing. Fucking the same thing with African American slavery. That war really didn't end slavery. What ended the slavery was the march of technology. Other countries were getting rid of slavery around that same time. Cotton gin came out. Slaves were too expensive. They were they cost too much. There was fighting over it. But slavery was very unpopular in the South. Most of the slaves were in Mississippi, and half of the counties in Mississippi had banned it. Only rich people had them. And a lot of those rich people in Mississippi weren't from Mississippi. They were from the North because they came here with a bunch of money and opened those plantations. Maybe a generation or two back. But yeah, that's another one of the mythos is that, well, we got rid of slavery by a big war, we did a good thing. It was going to go out anyway. It wasn't technologically viable. And it was destroying the fucking economy of the South. It just made everybody poor.
Yeah, that's kind of what it does. Because it forces everyone to compete with people that aren't being paid.
You cannot compete
and you
against
can't compete
slave
with
labor. And the slaves weren't at the bottom of society in Mississippi. That's another fucking, they were rewriting history. Who was at the bottom were the sharecroppers. They lived under slaves in terms of fucking, and they were black and white, freed slaves and real poor white people. They lived side by side and interbred for damn near a century. That's where all these light-skinned people came from. Not so much for slavery. It was mostly sharecropping. And they were poor. Their quality of living was fucking below a slave. Slaves had it made compared to those people. Now, you can say, well, they were free, though. They weren't free. They couldn't go anywhere with any money.
Well, if you don't have money,
you're not free. Yeah.
I mean, that's the sad truth of it.
They couldn't go nowhere. That's where the word white trash came from. They're talking about sharecroppers. Elvis was one of them, his family. White trash.
So because of all this, and because the Catholic Church has not been, unsurprisingly, very not very forthcoming about how many of these women died in their care, for whatever cause they died from. They kind of kept records, but they were sort of half-assed, and they don't really, they won't give them up when they're asked. So nobody really knows how many women lived and died under their tutelage, if you want to call it that. So we will probably never know. The estimate is that in Ireland exclusively, like I said, these institutions were common in other countries too, but they had mostly been phased out by, the early to mid 20th century. Ireland is an exception because it kept it going until the mid 1990s, which kind of blows my mind a little bit that it was this backward. I didn't really realize that. I mean, I knew it was kind of backward, but I didn't realize it was this backward. So they didn't really keep a lot of records and stuff. So they're estimating that in the 19th and 20th centuries, and keep in mind that these kind of institutions have been around since the mid 1700s. They think it was maybe 30,000 women that were admitted. They don't know if all of them died in there or anything like that. But they think since 1922, which is when Ireland got, its independence from Britain, that it was probably 10 or 11,000, but they're not entirely sure of that. How many were put into these places. Like I said, in Ireland alone, I think there were 10 institutions. So we're talking about across 10 institutions.
Hold on one second. Let me go ahead and pass around the collection plate. The show's been going on for 2 hours. If you're listening to the show recorded, of course, you can give us a super thanks. Jen's worked hard on the show. And I want to pass the collection plate around for super chats. I don't even think you got a super chat today, Jen.
I did not.
Oh, I did not get a super chat today. Okay, well, thank you very much. I just wanted to put that out there.
Well, thank you, John. Thank you for putting that
out. Yeah.
He's pimping me
out.
I'm
plugging.
He's pimping me out.
I'm pimping it out, yeah.
I mean, kind of. It's just in a crass kind of way. So I think that... So these went along, and they were kind of, I guess, like an accepted-ish, fixture of Irish life or whatever. However, I don't think, like I said, that just the public in the modern day, really knew the extent of what was going on in there. Until 1993. Now, in Dublin in that year, one of the 4 orders that ran these places, in this case it was the Sisters of Our Lady of Charity. They were the ones that operated the laundry in High Park, which, you know, some of the people in the documentary had talked about. Now, they had gambled some money on the stock exchange, because, you know, that's all godly and everything. And they lost a lot of money. And to recoup some of that money, they decided to sell some of the land for around the convent to a property developer, because I believe there is an apartment building there now. Thank you very much, Mrs. Evans Artie Party.
Got a super chat.
You guilted everybody.
Plate around. And you got another one?
Oh, thank you very much, Victor.
Thank you very much, Victor.
Victor says, I literally just got here, but here's a little
thank you, Victor.
Thank you very much.
You guys jumped on it quick, though. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You made the show economically viable.
We do like doing the show, but it is nice to get a couple bucks for it every now and then. But yeah, because I do, like I said, I do a lot of research for these.
Yeah.
So yes, these nuns are like playing the stock market. They're like, oh shit, we lost our shirts, so we need to like recoup some money. So they decide they're going to sell some of the land to the property developer, right? Like for around the convent. And like I said, I've seen like in a documentary that I saw, I don't remember when the documentary came out, but they showed like there's a big apartment complex there now. But when the property developer was, you know, developing the property, they found a little mass grave. Now, at first, they found 133 bodies. Now, the sisters were like, okay, well, because of obviously the paperwork and everything like that, well, it's like, well, we have to like move these to another place. So the sisters, they had the remains cremated, convenient, so you can't like check shit for later on. And then they had them reburied in a mass grave, like in a cemetery not far away. They paid half the cost of the burial, and the developer paid half. Now, it later came to light that when they were digging around in there were actually 22 more bodies than the sisters had applied for permission to exhume. Like, so they actually found 155 bodies in there, not the 133 that they thought. And when asked to produce death certificates for all of these women, because they were all women, they only had death certificates for 75 of them. Now, in case you didn't know, in the United States and in Ireland, this is way illegal. You're not really allowed to have a death like on your property without having a record of that death, right?
Yeah. So
only 75 death certificates they could produce out of the 155 bodies that were found here. So yeah, and sadly, a lot of the women in here, they didn't know exactly who they were. Like, some of them they knew, but because the women, when they first got to the place, were given a different name and weren't allowed to tell anybody else what their actual name was and shit like that. Like, some of them, they didn't know what their names were. Like, so some of them were unidentified. Some of them, they only knew their first name.
Yeah.
Like, all this other kind of shit.
And their real names, they probably just threw that shit in the toilet. You never know.
They probably
Staff
did.
changed out. You knew that girl's real name.
Because, like I said, a lot of them didn't have families. They were orphans and shit like that. I mean, this is just, like, so fucking sad to me.
Yeah. This is terrible, man. Look, these are all, by some accounts, by one account here, what Jen said, some of these girls were exceptionally beautiful Irish girls. They would have been more than welcome in fucking United States or...
I mean, if they could have afforded to get here, they probably would have been fucked over.
No, they
here
didn't
too.
want them. They would say, well, these are useless people. Fucking export them. Send them to the U.S., send them to Australia or something. They'd have been fucking, people would have been happy to have them. Instead, they just fucking enslaved them and worked them to death. Worked them until they died. Nasty motherfuckers. This is what I'm saying. This is a crime against humanity. These people need to be tried and executed.
Yeah, and like I said, this is just one place. I mean, there were a lot more of these institutions. Yeah. Like, are there more mass graves? Like, I'm sure there are.
I'm sure. And
the fact that they didn't register these deaths legally, like I said, that's very illegal to do. It's illegal here, and it's for sure illegal there, too.
I'd go ahead and arrest all these Catholic priests and nuns that were involved and to, like, fuck their immunity, whatever. They arrest them and fucking try them as criminals.
Well, no one should be fucking immune.
Nobody's immune.
Everybody's
Yeah.
You're just a regular ass person. Like I said, you take
the Nazis assumed that they were.
You take a shit and put on your pants the same way as everyone else.
The Nazis
does, so.
thought they were immune. The Nuremberg trials showed them otherwise. But there needs to be that kind of shit. There's got to be a reckoning to this.
You're not fucking Grand King shit. Like, you're just the same as every other motherfucker down here. We're all just like, hairless monkeys. Okay?
Yeah.
You're no better than anybody else. You gotta pay the piper. Just like everybody else does. You do fucked up shit like this. So...
we can't have them running these kind of institutions.
Yeah, so these women, so they don't even know who a lot of them are. And like they gave them a nice gravestone and everything like that, but it's like Jesus Christ, they don't even know who they are. Like a lot of them.
Yeah, gave her a nice gravestone.
And
thank you.
Yeah, thanks. We're fucking dead. And like I said, we don't even know. And because the Catholic Church had a lot of the bodies cremated, they didn't do autopsies or anything like that, so they don't know if these women died of natural causes or not.
Yeah, and they wouldn't have the money to go through all that anyway. Probably there's hundreds of them.
And I would suspect probably at least a few of them did not die of natural causes. I know that's allegedly.
You'd have to have some kind of international organization in there fucking doing an investigation. You couldn't trust them to do it.
Yeah, absolutely not.
No.
So when this happened, when they found this mass grave in 1993, like it took a little while for that to filter because the Catholic Church were like, oh, we don't know. We didn't do anything wrong. We were just blah, blah, blah. And so they wouldn't, they were being real assholes about, giving up any paperwork or anything like that. And so it took a while for the news, for the gravity of it to really kind of filter out to the public. Yeah. But when it did, everyone got fucking pissed. Everyone was, really, really pissed about it.
Because modern people are now seeing this, going, what the fuck?
And so, later on in the 90s, that kind of spurred a lot of the women that had been in these places to actually, come out and, talk about what had happened. Because, like I said, before that, they were, kind of ashamed of it and they didn't tell anybody. But once once one came out, a lot of the other ones came out and, started talking about stuff.
Let me say something. People do not change their minds. If you look throughout history and you say, well, now they believe the earth is round. The people that believed it was flat, they did not change their minds and say, well, it's round. What happened to the flat earthers is that they died and they were replaced. So the people that are now believing these girls and then fucking worried about this are not the same generation.
No.
Because
they wouldn't have given a crap.
They wouldn't have given a shit. What's happened is those people died off. They're replaced by what we could call sane people.
Yeah.
Sane and reasonable people.
People who actually give a shit about other people. Yeah. Imagine that.
So, you said this is the 90s.
Yeah.
Early 90s. You're talking about
Early
Gen X.
mid-90s, yeah.
Talking about Gen X.
Yeah.
Gen Xers are coming out going, wait a minute. You can't do this.
This shit ain't right.
You can't do this to people. But the boomers over there were like, oh, yeah, you can. Those are hoes. And, not all of them, but, a lot of them.
A lot of them would say that.
Mm-hmm.
Victim blaming.
Especially greatest generation.
Motherfuckers.
Like grandparents' generation. They wouldn't know around.
I think, a lot of people back then, they just did shitty stuff. And I kind of feel like deep down, maybe they know that it was shitty, but they're trying to, justify it by being like, well, they had it coming somehow. To make themselves feel better.
I'm trying to put this in the hands, I'm trying to recreate what my southern grandmother would have said from fucking Mississippi. She probably went, well, they should have known that could have happened to them.
That's what I mean. It's always victim blaming.
That's what she would have said.
Blaming.
Yeah. You can't just go out and suck dick for money and not get punished for
But most of them weren't doing that.
But that's what they were just thinking. They were projecting that on those girls,
of
though.
Of course. Most of them weren't doing that.
And the thing is they would all start... Man, I was at the biker bar and was fucking yelling... this is months back. And I mentioned fucking Jeffrey Epstein, and old fucking drunk Southern dude was like, oh, with them slutty ass girls? We're talking about with them slutty ass girls?
So it's okay.
And I said, wait a minute, hold on. Those were minors. Are you a rapist,
sir?
Those were minors.
I always think, every time somebody defends somebody like that, I'm like, oh, that guy must also be a rapist.
Yeah, and he's like, well...
I've done shit like that too, so...
slutty-ass girls.
Oh, well, it must not have been that bad. Yeah. They must have had it coming. Because I've also done shit like that. You know what I mean? Yeah. I always I'm like, okay, well, that's a rapist.
So those girls were underage. Those are people's daughters. And he's like, well, they were still slutty.
Sir. No, I'm not going to call you sir. Dirtbag.
Yeah. I was like... And
he's for sure raped somebody.
He was an old dude.
I would bet a substantial amount of money.
He was a groundskeeper at one of the.
He's for sure a rapist.
Yeah, he's groundskeeper. Fucking ran the groundskeeping crew of one of the other golf courses.
He's for sure a rapist.
And he got fired. He eventually got fired.
I wonder why.
One thing is he was a fucking raging alcoholic.
Yeah. And like I said, anytime anybody comes out and defends that kind of behavior...
Well, he didn't defend the behavior. He just put it on them girls. Well, they're being sluts.
That's defending the behavior.
And slut.
That's defending
those
the behavior.
Sluts, the slutty girls.
Because you're saying, oh, well, a dude has a right to do that.
Yeah, if they're slutty.
Because there's a...
But older generations were like that.
I know they were.
Yeah.
Like I said, that's why they're fucking terrible. You know what I mean? No shit. Like, you know what I mean? Some older people are cool. We're old, too. Like, I'm not shitting on all old people.
We're Gen X, though. This dude was...
But yeah,
boomer. He was a boomer.
They do have like a weird
way of looking at things.
Well,
they're not looking at things. They're just it's just a response.
A lot of them have like main character syndrome. One thing, and they kind of feel like like everything is your fault, which is a weird. That's a weird. Yeah. Okay, my theory.
You shouldn't have been walking down that street in that dress.
My theory is that people who want to believe that they have more control over their life than they actually do.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you do have some control over your life. But there's a lot of shit you can't control. I mean, you're just a little person. You're just a little cog in a machine. There's a few little things you can control, but there's a lot systemic forces you can't control, right? Yeah. I mean, I don't think anyone would argue with that. But I kind of feel like there's a certain type of person, and a lot of them are like from that generation and older, that think that they have more control over their life than they do. Yeah. So when something bad happens
to somebody,
they're like, oh, well, that must be, you must have done something to cause that. Yeah. Because that makes them feel better. Yeah. Because then if something bad happens to them, they can blame somebody else, like not some shit they did that fucked up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it goes back to the thing.
They don't want to take any responsibility,
It goes back to that thing. That, well, of course you got sexually assaulted wearing those boots and that skirt. That's going to happen.
Do you know that there was...
They actually have dudes that fucking...
A few years back...
I remember dudes saying shit like that back in the 80s.
Well, it's so prevalent, as a matter of fact, that a few years back...
There were old dudes in the 80s saying that.
I don't remember like how long ago this was. This might have been like 10 years back or something. But there was an art installation that was called something like What I Was Wearing or something like that. Yeah. And it had like rape victims. Yeah. And they gave the exact outfits that they were wearing when they got raped. Yeah. And none of them were sexy. All those were like sweatpants. Yeah. Like fucking, it was just regular ass clothes. Because they were just trying to they were trying to like fight back against that
stereotype.
Stigma. Yeah. That it's like, oh, you must have been dressed. Those dudes like, you had it coming.
Those
you know
dudes that do that fucking select targets of opportunity. It's more about the timing and the location more than what the girl's wearing. He doesn't care what she's wearing.
She's in the right place. It doesn't matter what she's wearing. It doesn't matter what she looks like. No. Because I've also heard some shit like, oh, you're too ugly to like. I've heard that too. That does not matter at all.
No. Usually, what there is, they're kind of waiting in ambush, or they're waiting
and
for
whoever happens along.
And the timing and the fucking place is right. And he goes, I can get away with it here, and he fucking does it.
Yeah, nobody's watching, and she's the only one around. Right, she's by herself.
Or she got in the truck with me. She's in the car now, so I can do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like it doesn't have anything to do with what she's wearing or what she looked like or anything. No. Nothing. No. And so, like I said, that's kind of why...
You might... Catcalls, you go down fucking, New York Street, construction workers everywhere, you look fine as a motherfucker, booty bouncing, everything's bouncing. The construction workers are going to love you. But they're not assaulting you. They're just going, baby, you look beautiful. They're going to say... I've heard the catcalls, girls walking... dressed provocatively in front.
I never had nice catcalls like that. No catcalls are nice. I don't find them. I don't find them flattering. I just find them scary.
I was watching YouTube and heard good ones.
I know you're a dude, so you don't like experience.
They were just being nice. They were like, "You look beautiful."
Why don't you just keep your fucking mouth shut though? Just shut up.
Oh yeah.
Like if you think I look nice. Fine, shut up. Here's the thing, though.
You look beautiful.
Me and several other women I know have noted that we got catcalled more when we were underage. And we're talking like 13, 14.
Yeah, that'd probably be true. They probably don't know you're 13 or 14. They just
I'm sure they do.
They just think you're real cute, so they're going to say some shit.
Why don't they just shut up, though? Like, how about just
they're signaling, man. They're signaling that they're available.
How about just not talk?
These men are signaling that they're available.
Just don't talk. In fact, men in general, just don't talk.
Look.
No.
Y'all know my history, okay?
Don't encourage catcalling. I hate it.
Catcalling is actually a beta move.
I hate it.
It's a beta move.
Most women hate it.
Yeah, it's a beta move.
It's not coming across the same as a dude, because the dude's like, oh, it's flattering. No, it's not. No, it's not.
Jen's gonna have her take. I fucking heard it. I know from the man's perspective. He thinks a lot of those dudes, it's beta, but they think that they're being flattering.
Well, they're wrong.
Now you look beautiful, baby. Just shit like that. You know what I mean? Legs. You know, like whoa. You know, but they're construction workers.
Yes, I have legs. How observant of you to know
I've heard them say all kinds of shit, but that was a test. Woman was walking that way in front of the construction zones. I thought it was funny. But the thing is,
it's not funny to us.
It's a beta move. Well, she did it on purpose, though. She was wearing an outfit to get a rise.
That one person did.
But yeah, it was a test to see what the cat calls were. But it's actually a beta move. Alpha dude ignores women. They're fucking chasing after him. Fucking, he's got too many of them. He didn't give a shit. Yeah. He's like, yeah, whatever. He doesn't care. But
like I said, I prefer dudes to keep their mouth shut. Honestly.
Yeah. Hypergamy. Look it up.
You don't have to talk.
You men have to understand hypergamy.
You don't have to comment.
Only the top 20%. Only the top 20% are men. Everybody else is invisible. But to a woman, so they don't want you talking to them.
That's not.
They only want fucking cute dudes fucking talking to them, and a cute dude could fucking say some shit, and it'll get away, and she'll think it's hot because she likes him. But if a dude she doesn't like says the same thing, she'll be like, "Oh, that's creepy."
Although
you just got to be aware of that.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
Even if the dude's cute, if he persists, it's still creepy.
If she likes him, that's very different, though.
Right, but like I said, don't justify fucking catcalling and sexual harassment and shit like that, because that shit is not funny.
Well, I didn't say that.
To us, it's very, very scary. It's threatening. It interrupts your day. You're just kind of like going around doing your own shit, and all of a sudden, here's this dude up in your space, like expecting you to pay attention to him, and like really like expecting you to pay attention to him, like some kind of entitlement. And I'm just like, nah. Get the fuck out my face.
I've seen dudes fucking, and I've seen dudes, and look, race is a factor. I've seen dudes fucking just jump on them and, hey, how you doing? What's your name, baby? And shit like that,
Oh my God, I fucking hate that.
Yeah, they're going to do that.
They're going to fuck alone. And every woman I know has had that happen. I have had that happen. And
where are you going? You're not scared of me, are you? That kind of shit.
Yes.
They're going to do that shit.
We are.
Yeah. But for some reason...
We choose the bear.
For some reason, though, we choose the bear. I actually think that might work on some women. That might. I don't know. I'd have to fucking look at the statistics.
Don't think it would be a tiny, tiny minority.
That might be his only way where he scored in the past.
Most women think that is very threatening behavior.
Yeah.
So I don't like. I said, you might get an outlier every now and then, but like I said, in the aggregate, that is most women find that very threatening.
As a guy, I watch it. I just think it's funny.
Well, it's not funny to me.
Yeah,
it's not funny to us.
Let me finish.
I know you think it's funny.
What I'm fucking saying. I see it because it's
no, because I know it's gonna be fucked up.
Let me finish what I'm saying. I see this shit. I just think it's funny because those dudes aren't a threat to me. I have fucked them up, but I know what they're thinking and I see them failing. You know what I mean? So I just think it's funny. You know what I mean? But I can understand her. You look at it from the woman's point of view. She's a lot smaller and weaker. He probably could force himself on her.
Like I said, I don't know who this fucking dude is. I don't know if he's like fucking Ted
from her
Bundy.
point of view, she's like, oh man, this dude fucking, he's a real threat.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
It
I'd lay that dude out
and
fucking just walk off.
Well,
like it was
good
nothing.
for you. Like I know you like to use.
That's the way I look at it. That's just the way I look at it.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, you like to use the show as a platform of how tough and strong you are.
No, I'm just
and you're just bragging about it.
No, I'm just saying.
But I'm just kind of like you don't seem to understand.
Okay,
you don't seem to understand. Because you're all about you, and you just want to talk about how I'm gonna beat that dude's ass, and I don't care.
I just see it and just fucking see it a little bit like an L. You know what I mean? Fucking
but
I think it's funny. You know, I think
good for you.
Kinda,
no one's asking you about it.
Most of those dudes are not a threat. Most of those dudes are not a threat.
Well, how the fuck do I know that?
Yeah.
I don't know that.
They're not a threat. They're just trying
you know, I'm sorry I'm not like all a man and muscly and shit like that like you, but it's like, you know what I mean? I can't think of it as funny. I might get killed. I know that's funny to you, but it's not. So, you know, I don't know, I'm getting mad. So it's like, he just goes on and on because he just wants to brag about, I'm so big and strong and all this other kind of crap. Yeah, Tammy's like, but that woman doesn't think it's funny. Yeah, it's not funny. It's absolutely not. I fucking hate it. I hate it. And most women hate it. So, I mean, if you're a dude that does that kind of, please don't do that. Please don't accost women in the street like they're just trying to live their life. It's very upsetting. I really don't like it. And I've had, like, really creepy shit happen to me. Really creepy shit. I've had, like, dudes try to get me to get in their car. I had a dude in fucking... Man, I was just getting some coffee in 7-Eleven one morning, and some dude was like, I'm gonna pull out your fingernails. Like, I was like, what the fuck, man? It's just, like, every day, it seems like. I'm just so glad I don't fucking leave the house anymore. Ugh. Like, it gets better when you get older, but not that much better. Like, it's creepiest when you're a teenager, which is, you know, fucked up in itself. But, you know, honestly, like, when I almost got pulled into cars, one of those, I think I was in my 20s, and I think once I was in my 30s, like, that happened. The 2 times that I remember. It probably happened more than that. But those are the 2 times I remember. But I wasn't young, but I was, like, younger. You know what I mean? But it still happens if I go out. It's, like, pretty creepy. It's just, I don't know. It's just creepy. Creepy. Dudes are creepy.
All right, look.
Let
me tell you all something.
Can I finish the
Okay,
story?
go ahead. Well, no, I just wanted to mention something.
What?
Tomorrow, work crew's coming. Gonna put a concrete slab out there and put 2 new air conditioners for this house. 2 outside units, 2 inside units. So it's gonna be hot in here tomorrow. Probably. They say it's all gonna be installed by 4. So, if y'all feel sorry for it, never mind.
What does this have to do with the?
It doesn't have
topic?
anything to do with anything. I'm just fucking saying tomorrow.
We're not doing a show tomorrow.
Okay, yeah, okay. All right.
So it doesn't involve anything.
All right.
I have a couple
new air conditioners.
I have a couple work meetings tomorrow, so I'll probably be sweating
it's gonna
through
fucking
those
suck
I
in
can't
here.
leave.
It's probably gonna suck in here.
But you know, like I said, you can leave. I can't.
No, I'm gonna stay right here and suffer. I gotta fucking watch them.
I gotta work.
They gotta come in and out of the house.
So. But yeah, so like I said, don't fucking catcall people. It's not fucking funny.
I don't do it.
So, well, I'm not talking to you.
Right.
I'm talking about like fucking. You better not,
Nah.
because that's fucking obnoxious. It's obnoxious and scary. So yeah, and like I said, it kind of ruins your whole day. So yeah. So when all this shit came out in the 90s, everybody got fucking outraged. And of course, they were like, well, you know, the government was in collusion with the Catholic Church, right? Took till 2001 for the government to come out and go, yeah, maybe we had some... Then they're like, look, we know that you did because you, like, had a contract with the Laundries, right? Like, they did all the government laundry, they did the army, they did all that kind of stuff. We know that you were in on that. But for a while... as per usual, the government was just kind of like, no, we don't really need to investigate. That was a long time ago, blah, blah, blah. Not really. Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nephilim.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nephilim.
More money.
So let's celebrate their first super chat on a live stream. Okay.
Yeah, oh yeah. Your first super chat and live stream is to help me pay for these air conditioners.
Yeah.
10 grand.
It is 10 grand, yeah.
Yeah. Had to finance to hit 10 grand for this house.
Well...
The electricity bill will go down, though. Those are old units.
I mean, hopefully.
Yeah. Value of the house will go up. Sell this bitch, make more money on it.
Yeah, someday.
Someday. We'll see.
So, yeah. So, the government did come out and go, yeah, maybe we had something to do with that. Blah, blah. But then, like I said, in 2009, that dude made the documentary. And that got shown on Irish TV. And that got people even more, like, fired up about it. And because of that documentary, like, a lot of the women that had survived it, that were interviewed for it, they kind of encouraged more women to come out of the woodwork. And they kind of, like, all formed this group called the Magdalene Survivors together. And that was kind of set up. And they set up a website and everything like that. And they started petitioning the government and the Catholic Church for an apology and also, like, redress for, like, all of the stuff that they had done. So finally, in 2011, the government said, okay, fine, we'll do an investigation. And it took them like 18 months. They did like this big inquiry or whatever. And then in February of 2013, the report comes out. And surprise, surprise, they found quote-unquote significant state collusion in this whole shit show. And also found that over 11,000 women had entered the laundry since 1922. That's not like all of them for all time, but that's just since Irish independence. And they also acknowledged that there had been a lot of abuse of women inside the institutions. And they also thought to mention that the laundries were never super profitable. I'm not really sure what they were trying to accomplish by that little piece of information. But yeah. Now, the Prime Minister of Ireland at the time, who's, I think he's called, how do you pronounce it? It's like that Gaelic kind of where it's like a bajillion letters, but they're all like pronounced different. I think it's Taoiseach or something like that. I'm not really sure if that's how you pronounce it, but his name was Enda Kenny. And he actually kind of came out and was like, yeah, it's kind of a bummer, but he didn't really like give an apology at first. And like all of the survivors were like super pissed at him. And then later on, he came out and gave like a formal apology. Not that that super helps anything, but I'm sure it made people feel better. And he did come out later and say it was he called it quote unquote the nation's shame, which, yeah, among other things, I guess. Every nation has a lot of shames. This is one of them. Now, the government did actually set up a compensation scheme for the victims. And I believe there were 814 women that got some of them, but I don't think it was a huge amount, but they got something, like at least some kind of recompense for all the shit they went through. Now, interestingly, they did ask the government and the UN Committee on Rights of the Child and the UN Committee Against Torture got on the Catholic Church's case about, hey, can't you at least like contribute to the victims fund? Like, you know what I mean?
All that money you have?
And the Catholics were like, nah.
Yeah.
They absolutely categorically refused to give any money to the fund.
That would be an admission of guilt.
Yes. And I'm sure that's how they saw it.
Yeah.
So they absolutely would not. And were like, that was the end of it.
They're like, we didn't do that.
So yeah, so a lot of the victims were understandably livid about this. Now listen to this shit. This made me really mad. So not long after this report came out, there were two nuns who went on the radio and were interviewed. Like, they wanted to remain anonymous for obvious reasons. And they said they wouldn't say, like, what laundry they had worked on. They basically said that the coverage of the laundries, which they said, well, we didn't do any of that. Sure. They called it one-sided anti-Catholic forum. That's what they called it. And then they said, well, do you want to apologize for all the stuff that happened or anything like that? And one of them said, apologize for what? Apologize for providing a service? We provided a free service for the country. And then they said, all the shame of the era is being dumped on the religious orders. The sins of society are being placed on us.
Well, society did it. They didn't do it. That's what they're saying.
So they do all this horrible shit, and then they're like, oh, we're victims. Oh my God, I hate that so much.
We're not sick. Society's sick.
Eat all the dicks. All of you.
They don't want to be held responsible, man. It's
of course not.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that made me so mad.
Yeah.
And then, for whatever reason, they asked fucking Bill Donahue, that fucking dirtbag, who is, if you don't know, is the president of the U.S. Catholic League, which had nothing to do with this. They asked him his, I'm sure, sterling opinion on all of this brouhaha. And he wrote, no one was imprisoned nor forced against her will to stay. Wrong. There was no slave labor. It's all a lie. He also said that the women in the asylums were prostitutes and women seen as likely candidates for the world's oldest profession. Unmarried women, especially those who gave birth out of wedlock, were likely candidates. Contrary to what has been reported, the laundries were not imposed on those women. They were a realistic response to a growing social problem.
So we lock them up. We lock them up because they might be hoes. That's what they're fucking saying.
I hate fucking Bill Donahue. He is such a dirtbag.
It's funny that they thought that would fly. What
Well,
year
I
was
guess
that
it
he said
did.
that? What year?
2013.
Fuck. He said that in 2013. That motherfucker's really.
They're just prostitutes. Who cares what happens to
prostitutes.
them?
We got to keep them locked up.
We were helping them.
Yeah, we're helping them out. Yeah.
Everything they said was a lie.
We don't want them walking around sucking dick, making money. What are you talking about?
If you don't know who Bill Donahue is, by the way, like I said, I'm kind of like very like I'm on like the
We're saving them from all those
anti-religion tip, so I knew who this stupid scumbag was. He was a dude that also at first denied the rampant sexual abuse perpetrated by Catholic priests. Yeah. Also blaming the victim in this case, calling the victims quote unquote miscreants.
Yeah.
Which that's nice. And then on in public, he said out loud, he later claimed that since many of the victims were boys under 12, that it was a homosexual problem and not a pedophile problem.
They're under 12, so therefore it's homosexuals. It's not pedophiles.
Because it was priests that were men molesting under 12-year-old boys. Oh, well, that's a gay problem.
It's not a pedophile problem.
That's because of gays. That's not because of pedophiles.
People fell for this bullshit. People fell for that spin. I don't fall for that spin.
Well, no, but I'm sure some people did. He's also a big advocate of all that war on Christmas crap.
Yeah.
And he also spoke out against the criticism of the church after the previously mentioned like the 800 dead babies in the septic tank thing that I was talking about earlier. Like, oh, that
800?
It was 800 babies, yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah, like he didn't say it didn't really happen, but he was just like, oh, they're just blaming us for stuff. They were just natural dead, blah blah blah. He was like trying to like do all these mental contortions. Like to come up with why it wasn't the Catholic Church's fault. Like he seems like one of those dudes, and a lot of the Catholic
running it and overseeing it.
That's what I mean. Like a lot of the Catholic Church, hierarchy that was, running this shit.
Yeah.
They were responsible. They were the ones running it. No one was overseeing it. Yeah. It was just them.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, and the government actually tried to get out of it at first, being well, that wasn't us. The Catholics are running that shit. But like, even though they were colluding,
I seem to fucking recall that like Mother Teresa's operation was about this bad too.
Yeah, we should probably do a show on her one of these days, because she wasn't the saint that everyone.
No, she was fucking evil, evidently. Pretty ruthless.
Put her out. So like, I kind of didn't really think about it until Christopher Hitchens like started talking about it.
Yeah, she's one of people. She said she was real cold.
Yeah, real cold. But I don't know. Like, I don't know a huge amount about it. But so what I haven't. That might be another show we can do.
Yeah, she was.
I'll write that down. But yeah, so he's basically like Bill Donahue is basically one of those people that it's like he essentially like just cries about everything. Oh my God, we need to boycott this movie because of this, and it's like just he cries about everything and tries to make like Catholics like the victims in every like situation.
He's a spin doctor,
even though they have all the fucking money, all this money and power.
He's just a PR agent
and shit like that. Yeah. Which there's nothing. I don't want to say there's nothing I hate more because there's a lot of things I hate, but it's like there's probably one of the things that I hate most is like super powerful people and super powerful institutions crying about how victimized they are.
Yeah,
I mean there's really nothing more tiresome than that. And he seems to be one of those kind of people. Like they're
ancient,
always the victim,
and rich
in every situation.
That shit is ancient as fuck, and they're very rich. They own a lot of fucking property.
And like I said, the Magdalene laundry system, not just in Ireland, but in other countries too. This went on for more than 200 years. Mm. You know what I mean? I kind of feel like in Ireland, at least, the abuse, as far as we know, didn't get really bad until like the early 20th century. But it's like, who knows what the fucking conditions were like. But I'm sure it wasn't great before that. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because like I said, when the Catholic Church is running stuff and they see you as a sinner or a fallen woman or whatever, you are, by definition, lesser than them.
Yeah, I find that fucking fascinating. I find that really fascinating. That they look at a woman and go, well, you're either a hoe or you could become a hoe as pretty as you are. So we're going to have to take you out of the system. We're going to fucking lock you up for the rest of your life. Make you do laundry. That's some wild shit, man. That's some wild thinking. I'm not really into that thinking. Not at all. I'm just like, you're fucking crazy.
That is fucking crazy.
Yeah. the punishment must fit the crime. You know what I mean? And if prostitution is a crime, the punishment's going to be something kind of small. You know what I mean? But
because, like I said, a lot of these women were kind of like forced into it. Like they didn't really want to do it. Most of them, I'm sure.
Yeah,
we caught like, well, what other fucking choice do we have?
Yeah, we caught you out there, you know, sucking this and that. You're destitute. Understand that. You're gonna do fucking 6 days in the county jail. You know that. Okay, that's part of the rules. It's still 6 days, but they're gonna feed you for 6 days. You know what I mean? You get a place to sleep for 6 days. It's gonna be something minor. If that, even if they gave
and
a
I mean,
shit.
honestly, I kind of wish they would legalize it, or at least decriminalize it.
Well, that's the same thing, basically.
Yeah. Well, decriminalize basically means, well, you still aren't really supposed to do it, but they'll just give you a fine. They won't like.
You go back in American history, going through the 17 and 1800s, even 1600s.
It's a dumb thing to like make it legal.
Prostitution was just everywhere.
Yeah.
And people really didn't care about it. They had whole fucking Mississippi River paddle boats that would go up and down the Mississippi River filled with hookers. It was like a hooker transportation system, and they would fucking drop them off at little fucking port towns along the Mississippi, and they'd all go out and fucking go into the clubs and do what they do, and then they'd jump back on the boat, you know? And history says they were a nuisance. The local governments thought that they were a nuisance, but they weren't trying to kill them or lock them up for life. They were at least compassionate with them, you know. Well, these girls don't have anywhere else to go. They got no other means of support. This is what they do, you know. Yeah, we probably should fucking try to get them out of a town where they can't stay here longer than 24 hours. But, you know, you're not trying to fucking lock them up in a laundry for the rest of their lives. And then a little extreme. And if you probably tracked each individual girl, she probably wasn't doing that for very long. A couple years maybe, until she found something else to do. You know, I don't think they were lifelong, most of them.
No, unless they were really destitute
Right.
and didn't have a choice.
Yeah. Well, I just don't think they were lifelong prostitutes, most of them. I think it was just I think it was survival prostitution, and they were just trying to survive.
That's kind of what a lot of prostitution is.
And then
most women would not choose to do that.
And then I think what they're doing is, I think what happens is that the economy would change and things would get better, and then they would move on to another business.
Or, like I said, I think it was a lot more common back in the day because women didn't really have a lot of career options, if you want to call it that. You know, if you were poor, you were kind of like, well, I could be a hooker, or that's about it. You know what I mean? There wasn't really a lot of...
Yeah, I kind of disagree. In the United States, they did have opportunities when the economy was good. You know, you could work in shops, you could be a school teacher, you could join a church and fucking work for them. You know what I mean? Doing stuff.
There were options.
There was
I'm just
options.
saying there weren't a lot.
Yeah. Then a lot of times they got married or just shacked up with a dude who had a job. They did that too. Just because some chick had a history of prostitution didn't mean that a guy wouldn't hook up with her. They would do that. Maybe they didn't get married, but you know, they'd be cohabitating, running a family farm. They were doing that kind of stuff, growing vegetables out back, fishing.
So yeah, I guess we're gonna wrap the topic up because
We're about the end of it.
Yeah,
Okay.
because we kind of got to the end.
What kind of comments we got? CB said that we had a domestic and that Jenny won it or something like. That is not a domestic fight. Me and Jen have fucking had fights on the show that were fucking awesome. They're way in the back of the archives. We were. And
You
usually
do make me mad stuff with like
we
some of
get
the
drunk.
shit that
We
you
get
say.
drunk. I'll say what I'm gonna get drunk. Oh well.
Like some of the shit that you say. It's just I'm like
I was
okay.
just talking about the video that I saw.
Okay, but like I said, I'm an actual woman who has lived her entire life as an actual woman. So anytime it really kind of irritates me, like anytime you say, well, my experience as a woman X, Y, and Z, and then some dude immediately wants to argue with you. A dude who has lived not a single day of their life as a woman and immediately argues. with you.
A lot of
that
those...
you are not right or you're misinterpreting things but that's, I mean, dudes think like that, I guess. They just, that's their first instinct well, you're a woman, so you're obviously wrong or you don't really know what's going on.
A lot of dudes catcalling are full of shit. They're not.
Right,
not,
but like I said,
they're not a threat.
I don't know that, do I?
That's all I'm saying.
So I'm just saying that it's like men's perspective in this is not helpful and not relevant.
Okay.
Because it doesn't apply to them. It doesn't apply to them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you seeing it from a dude's point, oh, well, it's not scary to me because I can just beat their ass, her. Like that doesn't really help anything.
A lot of the shit that fucking heard the dude's fucking cat calling a girl was fucking funny. You know what I mean? It was kind of creative. This was New York, though. Yes, New York. And it was most of them were the construction workers. She was walking on purpose around where the construction.
Well, that's another thing. She was doing it on purpose. She was doing it on purpose, to see what would happen.
Yeah, she was trying to, and then had a guy behind her.
Like I said, most
to
of us
record.
are just
That's what I was saying. That's what I was saying.
Oh well, okay. Well, then that is also irrelevant.
I was talking about the video that I saw. The dude. There was a dude walking behind her to record the cat calls.
That is also irrelevant.
Yeah.
Because that's not like a natural situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's not
and
what a
then
lot
you have
of women
some dudes
experience.
fucking, black dudes try hard, man. I've seen black dudes coming down on that girl. Hey, how you doing, man? I just wanted to know what your name was. And they're just being fucking trying to be as smooth as possible. She's like, I gotta go. I was telling them when
you were in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Like you remember when I worked at that print shop in Longwood?
Yeah.
And there was that 7-Eleven next door. So sometimes if I got there early, like before it opened, I would go to the 7-Eleven to get coffee. And I was in there one morning getting coffee. And I was minding my own business, like putting fucking Sweet and Low in my coffee or whatever. And this dude like comes right up to me and he's like, I love your fingernails.
Yeah.
Like that. And I was just like, what the fuck? Like it was like serial killer shit.
I love your fingernails.
And I'm just like, oh my God, is he going to follow me back to the store now? Because I just worked like right there. Like you don't know.
Yeah.
And like one time when I was working at the same place and I used to take a walk.
Yeah, you used to tell me.
Like
about
at lunchtime.
She would tell me about that. Yeah.
And I would like just walk like a mile up
dudes
and down the road.
following her in the car.
And like dudes be following me like in the car.
Yeah.
Hey, get in the car. No.
Yeah.
Come on, get in the car. And like you know what I mean. And then like I'd be walking like that, and then one dude like pulled into like he screeched.
Yeah.
Like into there was like a like a housing complex, and he like screeched into it like to get in the fucking car. I'm like I'm not getting in your fucking car.
Yeah, he thought you were a hooker.
And like I was, you know what I mean? And it's like, well, that's no excuse.
Yeah.
I don't look like a hooker. There were no hookers around that area. It was just businesses.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was just a douchebag. And I'm just like, I'm not getting
shit as a
in
dude.
your fucking car.
I've seen some crazy shit as a dude back at the old fucking Starbucks. Hooker walking around with her fucking, what do you call it? Burger King bag and a drink. Remember I told you about that one? I told you about that one.
Yeah.
That's all she would do is just go to the corner where the traffic was and then go to Burger King and then walk up to the fucking parking lots and do that big L thing. And she was actually from the homeless encampment behind Kobe's restaurant. You know Kobe's Steakhouse?
Yes.
There was just up the road there's a fucking homeless encampment. That's where she was from. If you were to look at her, you would never think that was a hooker. That was a hooker, though. She just looked like a normal chick. But she was just a homeless chick, walking around.
Right, but like, why?
Waving to people and fucking walking in the traffic and constantly walking. And she had...
Right, but like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah,
I'm just walking like a regular ass person.
A lot of the ones that fucking are, during the day, are kind of incognito. They're almost like in disguise because they try to...
So you're excusing it.
No, they're trying to evade the police. I think he was just confused. I think he thought you were a hooker.
Don't excuse it, Tom. He knew exactly what he was doing. He knew exactly what he was doing. I think he thought you were a hooker
trying to get you in the car.
No.
Yeah.
He did not think I was a hooker. He did not think I was a hooker. And like I said, don't excuse that fucking behavior. That just encourages it. Don't encourage it. Because that kind of behavior is fucking horrible. Please don't do that. But yeah, I've had that happen. That was really scary. Honestly, the place I worked before, I worked for Van Gogh Vodka. And it was in a building that was kind of like, it was like it wasn't an industrial park exactly, but it was kind of like on this little roundabout, like this like circular kind of road. And it was just kind of like other like industrial warehouses. And then it was at the end. So like sometimes, work, I'd just like walk around the thing, but I had to stop doing it because like the guys that worked at the other warehouse Epic back then, like, I couldn't walk by there without them, like, saying all kind of nasty shit to me. So it's just, like, I stopped doing it. And I stopped walking at the other place, too, just because, you know, you can't just, like, walk like a regular-ass human without getting accosted constantly. And it got just really exhausting. So I was just like, well, fuck it. I guess I'm not getting any exercise. I'll just, like, sit in here in my fucking office and hide. Because... why? You just want to go about your day, and it's just, like, really tiresome. It's really tiresome, like, dealing with all that crap. And, you know, it's just scary, and it's stressful, and you just don't want to do it. Yeah. So it's, like, at both places, because I used to walk at Van Gogh, too, but it's, like, I got harassed so much by dudes at other... I just stopped doing it. Yeah. Because it's just, why put yourself through that every day?
This is the United States. If you don't live here, people, this is the United States. This is Florida. Everybody has a car.
Gotta pee.
If you see a woman walking around, it kind of stands out. And if you have a kind of a fucking numbskull type dude, he's going to be like, well, she's walking around because she doesn't have a car. And she doesn't have a car. And she's walking around on the road and the sidewalk so she can be seen. So she can get in somebody's car and turn a trick. She's like, oh, that's ridiculous. But, you know, you don't see really women walking around on the sidewalks that much. For that reason. Guys are going to assume that she's plying a trade, especially in certain areas. And where she's talking about, that area was kind of a lower income area. Now, it's not the same if you're in a nice neighborhood and you're fucking jogging and fucking, or walking your dog in your own neighborhood. You know, that's not what we're talking about. That particular area was more of an area that had businesses and industries and little fucking apartment complexes and stuff. So I think what that particular dude is trying to get into a car, I think he was just a numbskull guy who thought that if a girl was walking around...
Or he was like fucking Ted Bundy. How the fuck do I know?
If he was Ted Bundy, he would have jumped out and shot you and then fucking thrown your dead body in the back and then raped that.
No, Ted Bundy didn't do that.
Well,
it was the middle of the day. It was like noon or something.
Yeah, it was the middle of the day, and I think he just couldn't understand why you wouldn't get in the car with him. Because I think he was projecting his past experience.
Or he was like Ted Bundy.
And a little bit crazy, you know, or maybe. But I think he just thought you were...
But see, the point that I'm trying to make, and Tammy also said this, the fact is we can't take the chance if a man is or isn't a threat. Like, yeah we don't know.
Yeah, well, I guess I can say
that's what they call it is Schrodinger's rapist. You don't know if that's... You don't know if that dude's a threat or not, and it's like you don't know that dude, and there's no reason for you to interact with him. So it's like you might as well just assume he's a rapist or a serial killer, because why would you go with him otherwise?
Okay, no, I can understand that. Like, I wouldn't have gotten that guy's car. No way.
Well, fuck no.
No fucking way.
The fact that, it scared me because he was so, like, insistent. Like, he went past me at one day and he was, like, yelling at me, and I'm just like, what the fuck ever? Because people, like, do that all the time. Like, shut the fuck up, whatever.
Did you have a phone in your hand?
No, I didn't have my phone. I don't think I had my phone with him.
Huh.
And,
he had
but then, like,
up.
he came back.
Yeah.
And then... You know, he's just like, he kept stopping, and he's just like, oh, come on, get in the car. I'm just like, no, I'm not fucking getting... And I just kept on walking, like, trying to ignore him. And then, like, he cut in front of me. Like, and he pulled into, like, a parking lot.
Yeah, he couldn't understand why you wouldn't get in a car with him because you were needy. You didn't have a car, and you didn't have a phone, you know. And you're walking around in traffic, so he's thinking...
I wasn't in traffic. I was on a fucking sidewalk in a normal, like, suburban area.
Yeah, there was traffic going by. So he's thinking, like...
Well,
she's just walking around.
He needs to stop thinking that way.
Yeah, well, he's a knucklehead. That's what I'm saying.
He needs
she doesn't
to stop
have a car, and
way.
she doesn't have a car. You know, get in a car.
I was just walking for exercise on my fucking lunch break, like a normal ass person.
White guy, black guy.
Yes, it was a white guy.
Yeah.
I'm just walking around on my lunch break like a normal ass person.
He thought you were broke, man. So why aren't you getting in the car with me?
Okay, Elliot Roger. Like, what the fuck?
That's what he's thinking.
I don't understand, like, the fucking entitlement. I don't understand.
You're broke. You're walking around. You don't have a fucking car. That's what he's thinking.
I wasn't broke, though.
But he thinks that you're walking around.
And I did have a car.
Without a car. Yeah, you had a car.
My car was parked right there.
Right. But in his mind, you're broke. You don't have a car. You don't have a phone. You know.
Oh, so I should be privileged to get in the car with him.
That's what he's thinking. That's what I think. You know, because
That's how I
most girls
think
will
about
walk
that.
and they'll have a phone in their hand. You didn't see a phone.
I don't
You didn't have a
think I had
dog,
a phone.
So he didn't think you had anything. So he was a good catch. Get in the
I
car.
might have, but I might not. It might have been in my pocket or something. I don't really remember.
It was something like that. Something like if I were to
It
see
was
the
a
dude,
while back.
If I were to see it, I'd be able to size it up and see what that.
The thing about it, like, he didn't look like, because look, I've been followed around by some scumbags. He didn't look like what you would think of as like a scumbag. Like, he didn't look homeless or nothing.
Yeah,
like, he looked like a normal ass person.
He got insulted.
Like, in like I guess it was a nice-ish car. I don't really know that much about
He
cars.
got insulted. Yeah.
Yeah, and he looked like he was like okay dressed. Like I said, he didn't look like a bum or anything.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like I was like, what the fuck is your problem? So that's why I thought immediately I was like American Psycho. Like I thought he was just like a psychopath.
He got insulted. He saw himself as successful.
Aw.
He saw himself as a successful
dude.
catch, and you broke, just walking around without a car.
Well, I'm so sorry
So that's
that
what
I
he thought.
hurt
He's
your
like, you should
feelings.
be getting in the car with him.
Random ass psychopath.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking. I mean, you dudes can drop it in the comment section, but that's how I
don't give
know
a shit
this
what dudes
area.
think
I
about
know
it.
this area, and
I don't give a shit what dudes think.
And I know
about it.
these
It's not relevant.
I know these knuckleheads around here. Yeah.
I would just not like
That's what he was
what
thinking.
like what kind of idiot would think that was going to work.
Because he's got about 100 IQ, maybe 90 IQ. You know, he's not that smart.
And like I said, and then the more you press it, the more I'm thinking that you're a serial killer.
And
Like,
then
because you're acting like a serial
and then
killer.
a lot of them have like preconceived notions and a bunch of stereotypes about everybody and life in general. Just
Well,
you know,
stop having those.
So all the stereotypes.
It's
start
not on
kicking
me
in.
to like fix that.
Right.
Fix your own self.
And you don't know. Maybe the dude did prison time, so he had a bunch of stereotypes about women that he picked up in prison.
Like I said, it's not on me
You
to
know.
fix that.
Right.
It's just on me
I
to
don't
stay
think he was
away
trying to
from
kill you.
to stay away from that
I don't
from
think he
your
was-
psychotic ass.
I don't think he was trying.
Well, I'm glad that you think that, but it's
yeah.
just like if at the time,
Yeah.
it was actually pretty terrifying.
Yeah, he wasn't trying to kill you. He would have killed you. He was trying to get you in the car with him.
And then he would have killed me.
It depends on how you acted.
Oh well, that makes me feel a lot
Probably.
better.
Well,
I love
depends
the
on
way
what
you're
happened.
like minimizing it.
Not minimizing it.
Yeah,
I'm fucking
you
just
are.
trying to tell you what I'm trying
You
to put
are.
myself in his fucking shoes.
You are trying.
He
to
thought
minimize
he
it.
was a good catch. He couldn't understand why you were walking off from him.
Because he was a psychopath.
He had a car and he thought he looked good. And you keep walking away. What are you walking away from me for? You
Like
don't
I
have a
said.
fucking car.
He sounded like Elliot
That's what he's
Rodger,
thinking.
who was a mass murderer,
Yeah.
by the way. So that's why we don't trust y'all dudes. That's why we don't.
That's
trust
not
y'all
all dudes though. That was just that dude.
Yeah, but we don't know that, do we? We don't know you.
Yeah.
Any one of y'all.
Have you ever
could-
seen me do that?
Any one of
Have
y'all
you ever
could end
seen
up
me
like
do
that.
that?
Yeah, but I've known you a long
okay.
time.
Well, yeah. So
Like if you're some random ass
Most
dude
dudes
just
don't do
walking by,
yeah,
I don't know.
most dudes aren't gonna do that.
Like look at all the fucking
Yeah.
serial kids. They just look like normal ass dudes.
Yeah.
I don't know who the fuck you are.
Yeah.
I'm not taking that chance. Sorry.
Yeah. All right.
I don't give a shit if it hurts your feelings or not. I'm
All
not
right.
taking that chance.
Everybody's going ahead. They're checking out now anyway. So
All
might
right.
as well shut it down.
Yeah, it's getting to be like 10:30
Yeah.
and shit like that. All right, so I'm glad that
Tammy's in there. Yeah, Tammy's agreeing with you. Yeah, it's all right, Tammy. I understand. I'm not saying that.
well, like I
Jen's
said,
wrong.
you're not a
I'm
woman.
not saying that you're
so
wrong. I'm
How
not
would you know?
Here's the thing. Go back and go listen to everything I say. I'm not saying Jen's wrong.
You're just minimizing it.
I'm just saying that
And saying it's not a
those
big
dudes
deal.
are probably pussies. All right, those just
Well, that's nice for
probably
you to say.
and most of those dudes are not a fucking threat.
But like I said,
It's-
I don't know
yeah,
that,
most
and
of
I'm
them
not
don't.
willing to risk my life on taking that chance, ever.
The default setting for that kind of guy isn't that he's bad. It's just that he's dumb. That's usually the default setting. He doesn't really understand how he's being seen. He doesn't know how he comes off. He can't put himself into a girl's shoes.
Well, that's your
He
problem
just-
right there.
Yeah, he thinks you see him as he sees himself.
Yeah, I know that.
That's how he's thinking.
Yeah, dudes are very
Yeah.
solipsistic. They're very self-absorbed.
Slips us, exactly. Exactly. And
That's why a lot of them
yeah.
act the way they act
Yeah.
because they don't understand. They think everyone else is NPCs and like
Yeah.
they think everyone perceives. That's why dudes send dick pics, like all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. That's what they would want,
That's what they would want. They want a pussy pic.
but they don't
ass pic.
understand that other people
They're
don't
projecting.
want that
They're projecting.
or that are not like
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, and then,
They don't really seem to
Yeah,
understand
and
that.
he thought he was a real winner. He couldn't understand why you wouldn't get in a car. As fucking as handsome and as successful
And
as
then he
was.
fucking escalated it
Yeah.
until I thought,
Which is to me,
okay,
To
fucking
me,
Patrick
that-
Bateman.
to me that's an L. Yeah, I just think it's funny. You know what I mean? Because that dude
Well, like I
doesn't know
said,
what the fuck he's talking about.
you have the privilege to think it's funny. I don't. You know?
I'm like, that dude's fucking tripping.
Because we can't take that chance.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's not funny to us.
I understand.
Like, I know, it's cool that it's funny to you.
No,
but
I'm not
it's not funny to me.
Look at how she started flipping
No,
around.
I'm just saying.
Look at how she's flipping around.
You always think it's funny, but it's not funny. It's really not.
He wasn't a threat, probably.
I'm not willing to take
Yeah,
a chance
he
on
wasn't
that,
a threat.
probably.
He
Sorry.
was just dumb.
Like I said, I was scared. I didn't walk
Yeah.
anymore after that.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. I wouldn't do that.
And it sucks that I couldn't just like walk around my work
No,
like a normal
man, they got
person.
fucking all kinds of random motherfuckers driving around there.
Yeah.
Some of them are serial killers. So
That's
no,
what
I wouldn't do
yeah.
that.
Like I said, I write about true crime all the time. Can't do that shit.
No,
Can't do that shit.
listen, not unless you got a gun.
You can't just be a regular person and walk around like a normal
No,
person.
not really. Not really.
You're
Not
gonna
really.
get murdered.
Not without fucking a bodyguard. Think about it. I've seen those same videos of the difference between a woman walking around alone and then she's got a dude with her.
Well, yeah.
It's totally different.
Well, see, I think
Totally
that's
different.
too like a reason why a lot of dudes
Yeah.
don't believe women when we say this, that, and
Yeah,
that.
like, I don't
because
ever
the
see
shit
that.
doesn't happen
When they're around.
when a
Right.
dude is with them.
Yeah.
It only happens when you're by yourself.
Yeah.
Then it happens pretty much every time.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen the difference. I know the difference.
So, but dudes are like, that never happens. Yeah, it doesn't happen when you're there.
Right, yeah. The dudes are
Obviously.
like, I ain't gonna say nothing. Right.
But when you're by yourself, it happens
Yeah.
pretty much every time.
Single women are fucking, they're a target.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't really like to go anywhere else by myself anymore.
I wouldn't.
You know,
Not without
it
a gun.
sucks because
Not without a
like,
gun. I got
you
all
kind
kinds
of
of
want
guns.
to sometimes, like, oh, I want to go here and there and the other, but you can't. I mean, you can. It's probably nothing's gonna happen. But like I said,
We got constitutional carry here. I'd give you one of the guns. You could carry it, but fucking, you need to train you first. Got to go down to fucking range, fire off some fucking rounds,
I'm not going anywhere. So
and then I got to know if I could trust you to not shoot a dude who's not a threat, because
Yeah, he probably had it coming.
there's
anyway.
gonna be a fucking there's gonna be a fucking trial and shit involved if you fucking shoot a dude, and the prosecutors are gonna end up saying that he wasn't a threat. That's just gonna be the default setting.
Yeah, Tammy said we shouldn't need a bodyguard 24/7. Yeah, we shouldn't.
Yeah, you
But
shouldn't, but that's actually
Dudes should be better.
we're in the animal
but
kingdom.
they're not.
We're in the animal kingdom. We're not.
And until they fucking wise up and get
Yeah.
better, I guess we kind of do.
it'll never happen.
Probably not.
Never.
Sadly,
No.
they can't get their shit together. Dudes can't get their shit together. So
Hypergamy.
okay, I know
More
you
than
love,
half
I know
of them.
you love using
More
that
than
word.
half of them ain't shit. Of course they're gonna act that way.
No excuse.
And more than half of them are not
No
on the fucking
excuse.
radar. So
Look,
they're gonna get.
You're
desperate.
a human being. You have a frontal lobe. Please use it.
No, they don't. Their
Yeah, they
IQs
do.
are low. They're dumb.
You know, we have to sort our shit out.
They're
so
dumb. They're real dumb.
Just sort it out.
Do not overestimate the intelligence of others.
Oh,
It
I
can
don't,
cost you
believe
your
me.
life. They're fucking dumb.
Yeah. Why do you think I
Yeah.
like fucking?
And if they're around 70 IQ or 80 IQ, they're dangerous because they're so dumb that they get themselves killed and other people killed because they can't think. And they don't know what's real either.
yeah, that's
You know,
yeah.
I lived it. I know. what
Look,
they're
I
like.
know dumb people too. Like,
Yeah, they're
you don't
fucking
you don't
dumb.
gotta mansplain.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna wrap this up for this evening. Getting kind of tired.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was actually like a really interesting, a very
Yeah.
depressing.
This one pissed me off.
Yeah, I was really pissed off by this too. Like,
Yeah.
like I said, we do a lot of true crime, and a lot of it pisses me. Like, all of it pisses me off. Like, to be honest, but for some reason, I don't know, man. This one really. I guess because it was like institutional, like you said, like the way that the concentration camps were, and it's just like, and it went on for so long, and like nobody did shit about it, and it's like all these people died, and like nobody even knows who they were, and I don't know. That really got to me. So yeah, so this one kind of was. This one kind of got to me. This fucking topic.
Victor's
But-
talking about when the show was 5 hours long on a Saturday, and we'd end the show with a fight. Yeah, we do. all
Yeah, I
that.
remember that.
Yeah,
I remember that.
yeah.
Good
It don't
time.
mean anything though.
Good
people.
times.
It don't mean anything. We don't stay mad.
No, we don't.
No,
It's-
we're drunk when we're fighting.
Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah,
Then like later.
that's
we're
part
like,
of our
"What?"
fucking routine.
Yeah.
I love that bitch.
I know. I love you too.
Yeah,
You're a douche, but I love you.
you're a fucking total straight up cut sometimes.
I know. I freely admit that.
Okay, yeah.
I'm kind of proud of it,
straight
even.
up fucking cut.
Kind of proud of it, even.
Tomorrow I gotta fucking.
I wish I
run-
was more cunty.
Yeah, tomorrow I gotta fucking do the damn air conditioners.
Yeah, we gotta wake up early because the AC guys are coming.
Yeah.
At like
I
8
gotta
in
make
the...
sure that
Aren't they
got
coming at
enough
like
room.
8 in the morning, which means I have to be like dressed before then. Oh, fuck that.
Yeah. So we're gonna be.
Because here's the thing, like I gotta work, but they're on Pacific time, so I don't usually have to get into meetings or anything until like at least 11.
I may have to go down there and get the outside window units and put them up in the fucking. Get
We'll
air
see.
conditioning that
Hopefully
way.
it's not super hot up
Depends
here.
on how
Because like
hot
I
it's gonna
said,
be.
I can't leave because I have a bunch of work meetings.
If it
tomorrow.
starts getting above 75, I'm pulling out the window units and the emergency air conditioners, and we're gonna fucking go that way.
Yeah, that blows.
I'll put one up in here.
It might not be that bad. They're gonna have it all done before 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
So they said.
Yeah. We're
But
gonna
we'll
see.
see how it goes.
They gotta pour a concrete slab and everything.
They better hurry up. That's all I
Yeah.
gotta say.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is Florida. We're not fucking around.
Yeah.
But yeah. So thank you everybody for dropping by this evening. Hopefully you found this topic as interesting as I did. Thank you for your super chats that you gave us toward the end there. That was really nice of you. We'll see you guys again on Friday night for our favorite show of the week, which is the Sidetrack Show, where you can get even drunker and like talk about just complete bullshit. I mean, even more than we.
Are we going out that weekend?
Well, Barbarella is not there because they're
The
moving.
mannequins, though. We wanna go
If
to that?
not really, but
Okay.
we can if you want.
Well, we could always
I mean,
save
I
money.
thought you said that you wanted to save money,
We can save money.
and I don't really care about going to mannequins.
All right.
You know what I mean?
We'll see. We'll see how.
If you really want to go,
we'll see how we
can,
feel.
But
I'll see how I
rather
feel when the
not.
time comes.
Victor said, "I'm off Friday. I'll see y'all then." Woohoo! Yeah,
Yeah.
like kind of. Hopefully, I really don't want to go out Friday night, so hopefully we can just kind of sit around and drink
It's a good goth night on Friday.
and
there.
bullshit. He's gonna talk me into it, isn't he?
Well,
And then I'm gonna
we'll
have
see,
to
we'll
do
see.
all this stuff.
We'll see. We'll see.
I kind of hate having to rush and get ready and all that kind of crap.
We'll see.
They have a Saturday night too. They do 80s, but I don't
Yeah,
know.
but it's
I've
80s
never
though.
been there.
We
All
can
right.
go to we can go to the goth night, and then you can see all your little fucking little baby bat fans.
Yeah, but I don't really know a lot of them. It's not
we
really.
we need to meet them.
Yeah, I'm not worried about it. They're all young enough to be my kid, so it's kind of weird. But yeah. So we'll see you guys again on Friday night. Thanks again for hanging out with us. Good